Chapter 16, we're going to learn about now, appraising, and we're going to learn about valuing properties, the process that an appraiser goes through, as well as the process we go through in valuing properties. We're going to talk about valuation theory, and then we're going to talk about the different approaches to appraisals. So at the end of this chapter, we'll describe the different various types of value, the theory of valuation, explain 3 approaches to value, and discuss the profession of appraising. We're in chapter 16, page 273. All right. Well, part of the valuation is trying to determine how much a property is worth in a given market. So before we could get into any valuation, we have to understand, what is a marketplace? What is a market? What is a market? It's a place where goods can be bought and sold, a price can be established, and it becomes advantageous for buyers and sellers to have a place where they could come together to trade those goods. And real estate's an imperfect market in that regard, because you can't take the product out to the people. You got to take the people out to the product, right? All right. Now, here are the 5 attributes to land. In order for land to have value, it's commonly agreed that it has to have 5 of these attributes. We're going to turn the page, 274. It's finite in its supply, meaning that there's no new land that's being created. What's there is there. It's physically immobile. You can't pick it up and put it in a better neighborhood, right? It's durable. You could drop a bomb on it and it'll still be there. So it practically lasts forever, short of a few extreme circumstances, you know, where pollution and things like that, contamination, you know, and it has its own unique location, character, and characteristics to it, and it has to be useful to people. All these things are required, or all these things contribute to it having value, right? So supply and demand. What is supply and demand? Well, supply is the amount of the goods that are offered for sale within the given marketplace during a given period of time. Demand is the number of people ready, willing, and able to purchase those goods at that given time. And when supply increases, prices drop. When demand increases and perhaps supplies drop, prices will rise. So if we were to go look over to the next page for a second, 276. Under supply and demand, I want you to highlight the first sentence. This principle states that the value of a property increases if the supply of such property decreases, and the demand for it either increases or remains constant, and vice versa is true, meaning the opposite's true. And then we go back to page 74. So value is the monetary worth of goods, products, or services offered in the marketplace at any given period of time. I guess it's the wrong choice having that window open. I could hear a plane flying by. All right. Value is equal to 100%. The word value means 100%, because when we talk about value, we're always talking about all of it, right? So this can be described as the present worth of future benefits. Value can be described as the present worth of future benefits. And value does not remain the same over time. It varies with the market. As the market fluctuates, so can the value. Then I have this tip down here, which I've told you about already several times. Here's some classes that'll help shape and sharpen even after you take this class, you can take it again. You know, I try to take it every year or every couple of years possible. The Ottawa CMA workshop class. And if you just need some refreshing, or perhaps want to get updated on the current market, the market conditions and forecasts, you could take their seasonal workshops. That's that Ottawa Appraisal group. They teach, they put together classes for real estate agents on how to value real estate. Right now, they're just doing them remote teaching. I took this class this year again. It's a, you know, I mean, I've been in the business for a while and I still take these classes, you know, it's valuable. I highly recommend it for you guys. You guys will appreciate these classes. And let's see. All right, so this the CMA workshop is a good class to take, but I also do suggest taking these seasonal workshops. And here's the link for that, OTTEAU.com, for taking it in the future. Like I said, I try to take this class every year. And if I miss the CMA workshop, I'll take the seasonal workshops so that I get updated on the current market conditions and where we're going. They even have an email thing that you could sign up for. Hold on, let me go there really quick just to show you guys, and then we move on through the class. Oh, I never opened up the browser, so it'll take a minute. All right, so that's they have some seasonal workshops, but they also have a thing you could sign up to get reports sent to you about market updates, and they send it to you every month. They also, if you signed up for that, then you can also have the ability to call or email the guy who runs this group directly with any questions you have, or maybe you're trying to do a CMA that's tough and you don't know how to quite do the valuation. The guy who's an appraiser will actually assist you in doing it, you know. So it is worth it. But that's the Ottawa group. Let's see, browser's starting to open. Hold on, sorry, I didn't open it in advance, which brings to my attention right now something else. Let me just stop the cast for a second, and I could just start opening my whiteboard, because we're going to need that today. The Zoom controls in the way. Come on, open up. Just can't open too many things at one time. There we go. There we go. All right. So, you know, here's their Ottawa group. It's called Market Track, is something that you sign up for, and these are just regular reports that they would send you to keep you up to date on the market. They send it monthly, and this would actually be even good content that you could just rewrite. You know, don't just post their information, but you could rewrite. You could rewrite it and have it as content on your website, or instead of writing it, you know, it's becoming you know, strong with search engines where they give you more ranking, is if you have video content on your sites too, on your websites. It's not a bad idea for you guys to do several things for yourself. First of all, as new agents, try to come up with all the information about the brokerage that you're going to be working for that you can, and try to write up a little resume about yourself and why you would be a good agent, you know, to work with somebody. And then you could create like a video resume for yourself, or not a video resume, but a video introduction. of yourself. And then you could put that on realtor.com, filling out your realtor profile there. You could also do it on you could put that on your website, that video. And you could just you could just go to YouTube and do a search of some of the agent profiles that they've been creating about themselves. Make sure it looks professional, make sure you're dressed appropriately, try to film it perhaps in the office when nobody's there, you know, and create this agent profile for yourself. Or if you have a nice empty or clean office or room, try to film it there. And have a good agent's profile introduction video for yourself. I'm just throwing ideas out there of things you could do. Another thing, it's not it's not bad. Here's a guy. There's also another guy that I know of that teaches, or he's moving towards teaching and coaching and stuff now. He even opened up his own brokerage, but he's based in New York. The guy, in his first couple of years of real estate, check this out. He sold over $1 billion in real estate. A billion with a B. And now he's teaching and coaching and video, has all these videos showing people how to do it. He wrote 2 books, wrote another book in the recent COVID downtime here to help out agents on how to get started. So anyway, here's that market track, which gives you those regular updates. You know, yeah, you could just sign up for the news from him with the regular updates, or you could do like an annual plan. The guy's name is Jeffrey Ottawa, and you could ask him questions. It's $99 a year, and it's tax deductible. It's a business expense. You could ask the appraiser directly questions about valuations and such. So it's a pretty good thing to do. But the 2021 housing webinars coming up. And then actually he's going to be having another, usually they only do it once a year, but I think they're doing it twice this year. They got another one that's coming up for doing that CMA workshop. And so if you go to events and workshops, you can see the advanced CMA workshop, March and November now. So they got another one that'll be coming up. So keep an eye out for it, sign up for it, and you know they'll send you an email when it's coming up again.
We have to pass the exam first to be a,
No.
Okay.
No. All right, but I'm just saying these guys are great for valuation and for valuing properties, and you know, because that's part of our business, is it not? Learning to value, how to value a property. So I'm just trying to pull up that other information about the other fella that's a trainer for you guys. He's a real estate agent. Obviously, you could see he's also a very charismatic fella. You know, so you could see the kinds of attitudes and just the demeanor of people. Sometimes it's inviting, you know. So I mean, if you're a person that talks like this all the time, and you know, it feels like when you're talking, it's a struggle. You know what? It comes out to people like that too. Like you're pulling them down too. So you should talk with a little more charisma. You know. When you're talking on the phone to people, have a mirror in front of you, sit up straight, smile, and then talk to them. You know, it changes your demeanor too. But here, just getting some ideas from this guy. What's his name? Sirhan, I believe is his name. Believe it or not. What the hell did I do with the videos? Oh, I emailed them to myself. Sirhan, yep, I don't have it here. I sent it in an email, so I would have to open up the email to get it for you. So let me get that up real quick. Email. All right. Where are we? As I log into my email really quick. Yada, 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 This guy's got a really interesting intro video that'll probably captivate you a bit. I actually just learned about him recently myself. And his name is Ryan Serhant. Is it interesting? Here, like, check out this video. How to be a successful real estate agent in 7 steps. Okay. Now, in these 7 steps, he just describes them. I guess this is like the teaser for his courses that he teaches now. And he has a book even that that you could just buy the book. But let me put the video up on screen. You guys can check it out. I'm not going to play this whole thing. Instead, I will give you the link to it. And you guys can watch it in your leisure.
So you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well,
that looks like it is a advertisement. So let's skip that. Once we're able to, let's silence it.
Is a little note.
All right, skip that ad. What is this? Okay. Oh, this is a sample agent profile. Okay, of an agent. All right, never mind that one. I was looking for those to be adding to you guys to show you how you can make introductory videos for yourselves. A bunch of different sample agent profiles I was looking through. So obviously it looks like I got the wrong one for that, wrong video for the Serhant fella. Pull that up here. Serhant. Yeah, his book is Big Money Energy. Sell it like Serhant, I believe it is. All right, I'll try to find this video when I can for the introductory video from this fella. You guys will get a kick out of it. I'll do that during break. All right, wasted enough time on that. Let's go back to the class here. All right, so situs. Some people pronounce it situs. Well, some people pronounce it situs. I pronounce it situs. To remember what it means, it's a people's preference of location. And I figure when you're looking around for a property where you want to build a house, you find that perfect location. You say, we're going to sit us right here. So that's how I remember it's a people's preference for location, situs. But it's actually pronounced situs in Latin. This is a word you'll probably get on exams. It's a people's preference for location. You know, and what are some of the major factors when purchasing real estate or for valuing it? Location, location, and location, right? Location is very important. Remember I told you about that builder that built that brand new $740,000 house, but he built it in the wrong neighborhood there. Well, it's only a block away from the $740,000 homes. Yeah, but you should have built it a block away then. So he built it in a cheaper neighborhood, ended up being the death nail of his business. You know, so location is important as well. All right, years ago in this country, when all the land that's out here in this country, if it wasn't claimed for ownership yet, the government actually allowed, they had something called homesteading. And here's an example in a movie scene from Far and Away with Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, where they use one of the famous land rushes. It was basically a race where the government was giving out, I think it was like 140 acres or something for anybody who just claimed the land. They had it already mapped out and staked out. All you got to do is grab the flag and claim it, and that land is yours. So this was the land rush in Oklahoma in 1889. Here's actually a live picture of it. Well, yes, they did have those cameras with the big flash and gunpowder and stuff. That's the kind of picture they got out of it. But there was a movie made about this too. They used to give away this land as people were moving out west. They actually had a race. They had everybody lined up and they were giving land to people, whoever claimed it first. That was, so I have some other resources here learning about that. That one was on Wikipedia. Here's one actually, it looks like it's a children's website. But it has a little bit better pictures explaining about this, okay? So the Homestead Act became law in 1862. You don't need to know this, by President Lincoln. Okay, so he was giving away, all you had to do is be a US citizen and you could get 160 acres of unoccupied land. All right. Here's the pictures of that race I told you about, that Oklahoma land rush. And they made that movie about it about it. You know, they were giving away land in the United States all the way up to, I think the last time they did it was I don't have to guess, 1986 was the last time that the US government was still giving away land to people who claimed it. And now in 1986, at that point, they said anybody who has not claimed any land, if any land that's not claimed for ownership by private individuals yet, is now government land. So it's all government land now. And believe it or not, the majority of the land in the country is unoccupied by people and is government land now. All right. So we have 4 economic, by the way, guess where the last place is that they did homesteading?
New Jersey?
No. Homesteading, where they're just giving away land. You claim your 160 acres or whatever it is.
Oh, Texas?
Oklahoma?
Texas?
Alaska.
Alaska?
Alaska was the last state that they did homesteading in. They did away with it in 1986. And you could even see some of these original people who made that claim. The government's trying to, they tried to renege on it and then they took them to court. They even have TV programs. If you see on TV, it's these people that are living out in the middle of nowhere, right? Because now they made it all government parkland that's a preserved area. But you have a few people that are living there out in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness, and that's their homestead. But they're allowed to keep it as their homestead for the remainder of their lives, and they could only pass it down to their children. You can't sell it to anyone else. So if their children don't want to carry on the homestead, then that land goes back to the government. So it's interesting nonetheless. It's a program that's on TV. I'm surprised none of you have seen it. All right, so 4 economic characteristics to value. Well, the present worth of future benefits arising from the ownership of real property value can be described as. So for a property to have value, it has to be demanded by people who are willing to buy it and can afford to buy it and have a desire to buy it. Utility means that it's serving some sort of human need or desire. Scarcity means that it's limited in its supply. It's scarce in its supply. And transferability means that the ownership can be easily transferred from one party to the next. If you cannot do these things, then it will devalue the property, right? If nobody wants it or is willing to buy it or can afford it at your price, you know, demand is one of the 4 economic characteristics of value. Scarcity, utility, scarcity, and transferability. So how could this be added as a question on exam? Well, let me ask you a question. Let's just say Toll Brothers, like a builder, built a couple of 100 home project down the street, and you want to purchase a property if you could get the city to give you a permit to put in a combination laundromat and convenience store. Which 4 economic characteristics of value would describe that situation best?
Utility?
Utility, serving a human need or desire. You want to get that property, but only if you're able to use it for the purpose that is intended And if there's a bunch of hundreds of homes that were built nearby, you think they're going to need a laundromat and convenience store. So the value to that property for that purpose would be utility, would be serve the greatest purpose right there, right? To serve that human need or desire that's needed for that area. All right, let's, on the bottom of page 274, last paragraph, let's highlight the first line and then the word situs beneath it. Location for people's preference of location is situs. And on the next page, 275 at the top, just highlight the first sentence and put a highlighted box around those four points: demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. Dust. It's just a matter of understanding them, not memorizing them necessarily. So what is an appraisal? It's an unbiased estimate or opinion of value. It's an opinion done by using approved methods, based on supportable evidence, done by an appraiser. Appraising is a profession that requires licensing. So an appraiser is an independent person. They don't work for the lender. They don't work for the borrower either, even though the borrower pays them the fee. They work independent. The lender selects the appraiser and sends them out, and you as the borrower would pay them. And then they give their trained, unbiased estimate of value that using approved methods and supportable evidence so that they could prove how they came back to that value. And another appraiser would also be able to come back to that value or something close. So that's basically what an appraisal is. It's an opinion or estimate of value done by a licensed independent person using approved methods and supportable evidence. Okay, so they're not just pulling numbers out of thin air. So market value is the price that a ready, willing, and able buyer who is not forced to buy will pay a seller who's not forced to sell. So the most probable price a property will, it's based on the most probable price a property will bring, based on supportable evidence. If people use it cash or its equivalent, like a mortgage loan, to purchase it, it's difficult to value a property if you're just trading it for something else. You had to have had the property exposed to the market for a reasonable length of time. The buyers and sellers are acting without undue sales pressure, and both parties must be well informed about the property's assets, defects, and its potential. How could you properly value something if you don't know what's wrong with it or what the benefits to it are, right? That's basically what they're saying there. And its valuation is estimated by a real estate licensee or a licensed appraiser. How do we help people value properties? CMA, comparative market analysis. All right. Now, anytime you do an appraisal or a CMA or anything like that, the market assumes that that was a arm's length transaction. What is an arm's length transaction? Take a look at this. There's at least an arm's length between me and you. What am I trying to say by that? I'm trying to say that we're not that close. Okay, that's what an arm's length transaction means. It means it's between people who are not that close to each other. They're relatively strangers to one another. Each of them is trying to do the best for themselves. So an arm's length transaction assumes that the buyer and seller don't know each other, that the seller's trying to get the most they can for the property and the buyer's trying to get it as cheap as possible. Why does this matter? Well, when using comparable properties to try to do an appraisal and value a property, you can't take into consideration a transaction where two relatives sold the property to each other, because the odds are that they may have given them a break. Look, if you have a brother or sister and you're selling them your house, is there a possibility there that you're giving them a break on the price? Just pretend there's no drama, you love them, and
Yes.
absolutely. So this is why an appraiser cannot use that as a justifiable comparable if they're aware of that. Because the possibility that there's outside influences that would affect the ending sale price there. So when trying to value other properties, they can't use that as one of their comparables because that property was not sold under normal market conditions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so you have to understand what an arm's length transaction is. You'll get a question about it on exam. It's between two people who are relatively strangers to one another. All right, so let's highlight under market value in the second line. An appraisal is an estimate or opinion of value based on supportable evidence and approved methods. An appraiser is an unbiased person trained to provide an unbiased estimate of value. Then in the next paragraph, we're going to highlight the market value of real estate has been defined at a price that a ready, willing, and able buyer who's not forced to sell will pay a seller who is not forced to sell after the property has had reasonable exposure in the market.
I'm sorry, where is that?
On the second paragraph under market value on page 275.
Okay. Okay.
And then it goes on to say, in this definition are the following key points. And that's all the stuff that I read to you over here in this list. So underneath that list is an arm's length transaction. So I want you to highlight from the words arm's length transaction to the end of the sentence. And I want you to underline the word arm's length transaction. All right. So, leave off here. Yeah. So, market value. Let's see. Both the buyer and seller to determine that market value. Both the buyer and seller have to be well informed about the property's assets, its defects, and its potential. And how can you properly price a property if you don't know what's wrong with it, what its pluses are, what its negatives are, what's wrong with it, any improvements that have been done to it? Well, you can't. So don't ever try to value a property or get a listing if you've never been to it. Always go to the property. All right, don't try to do it just by doing research remotely by never visiting the property. You don't know what condition it's in.
I was about to say, a lot of people are touting the online sales now. You don't have to go to see the property. You could just do stuff online and put the,
No, you can't.
the offer.
I mean, you could watch a video for a open house, maybe you could cast it and produce it. But who the hell's going to buy a house only looking at it online? They're going to have to eventually go to that house, inspect it, walk around it, look at it. Something could look really nice online. Are you going to buy a car online without looking at it in person? I mean, some people do, I guess, now with Carvana and such.
Yeah,
but
with Carvana, they
that's
do.
a brand new car.
Right,
Not a
right.
used car.
No, I wouldn't.
Most houses are used, aren't they?
Yep.
Would you buy a used house like that? I wouldn't even buy a new house like that. I seen construction that's screwed up. That's new construction. All right, so some people will do it, although some people may start doing that. The majority of people still are not going to be doing that. Are they going to do it in our lifetime that it's going to flip? I doubt it. Not in our lifetime anyway, but people still want to see what it is that they're buying. Even though you buy a lot of stuff online, when you're making an expensive purchase like that, you want to check out that good thoroughly, right, before making an offer. You can't really tell the room size from online. I mean, you can get maybe a little bit of an idea, but is my pool table going to fit in here? Let me get the layout. You know, to get the true feel, you got to go to the house.
Right.
You know? All right, so this is not in the book, but cost relates to the past, price relates to the present, and value relates to the future. I don't think there's anything here that talks about it in that regard. But that's what it is. When you talk about cost, how much something costs you, you're talking about the past. Price relates to how much you want for something. It talks about the how much you want for it in this given market right now. And value relates to the future. How much is it going to be worth to me in the long run? All right. Highlights market price. We're talking about market value, market price, and costs. So we already went over market value. It's an estimate based on analysis of comparable sales, based on solid data, based on projected sales price, which is going to be the current value. The market price, on the other hand, market value and market price. Market price is the selling price. Market value, we help people determine the market value, trying to estimate what it's going to sell for in the future based on what homes are going for right now. Market price, on the other hand, is the selling price. It's what stuff has just sold for recently. So it's what the property actually sells for, the eventual selling price. In a perfect world, the market value and the market price are one and the same. But remember, we help people determine the market value based on supportable evidence. Does it mean that that property is going to definitely sell for the amount that we said?
No.
Okay, so in a perfect world, they would be one and the same, but it doesn't always pan out that way. You could get people that offer less, or you could get people that offer more, but we're basing that that value of that property based on supportable evidence. Cost is the total fee to construct or to make improvements. And it has little to do with the current value of the property. Cost relates to the past value. Buyers don't care how much improvements cost for you to make. They care what that contributed to the current value of the property. And not all improvements will pay for themselves. We learned about that like installing a pool, right? When you install a pool, it costs you what, $20,000, $30,000, anywhere in between there. How much does it increase the value? Does it increase the value of the property? Absolutely. But how much does it increase the value by? What, $6,000 to $10,000? So you're not going to get all of your money back on that improvement. Will it make it more desirable to buy? Yes, for some people. For some people, it'll turn off that don't want a pool. You know, so which improvements pay back the most? Were you more likely to get back your total cost on it? Probably a kitchen rehab or adding square footage to the house, maybe not necessarily. Would you recoup all of that money? But I would say doing a kitchen rehab would, up to a certain point, because we have something called increasing and diminishing returns. Your value will increase up to a certain point, you'll get your money back, but then you go extreme with the kitchen makeover and you start losing money. That's money, additional money you're dumping into additional features that you'll never see returned back to you in the eventual selling price.
Does the bathroom rehab, does that do anything?
You're probably not going to get all the money back that it's going to cost you to do it. Will it increase the value? Yes. Are you going to get every penny back from it? No. You know, we watch a lot of HGTV these days. We live in an HGTV world. And HGTV, they show you, oh, we did this improvement here. That added X amount of value to your home. You know, but they're telling you all this before they ever sell it. They're all just estimating how much the value would be adding to your home. You know, let's see what it actually ends up selling for. You know, that's a different story altogether. And it also depends on the condition of it currently. You know, are you talking about this house that you bought was a total rat's nest to begin with, and the whole thing needed a makeover because it's worth crap, so you paid basically nothing for it, or very cheap. Now, all the money you put in for improving that bathroom, yeah, you'll probably get it all back if you're
Right.
starting with junk. But if you're like, you're starting with a bathroom that's, it's doable to begin with, but now you're just modernizing it,
Mhm.
you'll see an increase in value, but will you get every penny back? Probably not.
Mm.
Okay. Will a house sell quicker though, because it's so nice? Yes, because you're increasing the desirability for it. Don't confuse desirability for value. They're two different topics entirely. Right?
Shiny penny.
That's right. That's right. It'll sell quicker, but it's still a penny. Right? Now, market value, let's highlight under value versus price. Market price, on the other hand, is what the property actually sells for. It's the selling price on the second line under market value versus price. Then next to market value versus cost in the second paragraph, on that first line after the word more, I want you to highlight often cost does not equal market value. Turn the page. You'll need to know for exams what the highest and best use is. It's the most profitable current use that a property can be used for now or the reasonably near future. All right, so the highest and best use is the most profitable use that a property can be used for now or in a reasonably near future. Which one is the highest and best use? A parking lot or a building?
Building?
The building is, right? Which one is highest and best use? A parking lot or a parking deck?
Parking lot.
Parking deck. You have
What's
more.
a parking deck?
It's basically like a parking lot, but you have more levels. You're building up.
Oh, more
So
more
it's
levels.
So it's a more profitable use, right?
Oh, right. More levels.
Now, a parking deck or an office building?
Office building.
Office
The
building.
office building will get more for the rent, even though
Right.
you're talking in New York. I know parking is expensive, but how
Right.
much is the rents there?
Exactly.
You get, all things are relative. All right, so that's basically what highest and best use is. Which one is highest and best use in a neighborhood? A single family home or basically we're talking about highest and best use to get this understanding, because when we talk about valuing land later on, you have to first determine what the highest and best use is for that property. Could you only put a single family house on there, or is it mixed use, or can you put a commercial property there? What can the land be used for when trying to value the property? Look, in Linden right now, my church just sold the property. The church is shutting down because everybody's losing God these days. So they're not getting as many people coming in the front door anymore. They actually just sold and they shut down the location here. So I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's another, if it's going to be used for religious purposes again for another church or another religion that's going to go in there, or if they're going to turn it into housing, or if they're going to turn it into a commercial property. Because although I don't know if it can be, I don't know, maybe it's across the street from commercial property, but there's no commercial property in that side of the street. So I don't know what is its highest and best use. Also depends on the zoning, right? So what is the most profitable use that the property can be used for? Now, amenity. What is an amenity? An amenity is a tangible or intangible benefit to the property. And I give some examples here: clean air, nice views, convenience features like pools, a jacuzzi, heated floors, or a heated toilet seat or bidet, high-end appliances and custom features. These are all considered amenities. Could they add to the value? Sure. Could they add to the desirability? Sure as well. But that's what an amenity is, okay? So let's highlight the first sentence under highest and best use, and in the same paragraph towards the last sentence, highlight the amenity is a tangible or intangible benefit to the property, like the views and clean air, right? That's an amenity, right? Some people are like, oh, wow, it's beautiful here. You know,
Yeah, like when you go on vacation.
yeah, I mean, just the beauty of the scenery,
Mhm.
that's intangible. You can't touch the scenery. Oh my God, just smell the air out here. It's so clean, you know. You can't touch the air. That's an intangible asset, but it is an asset, right? Now, the theory of substitutions states that by the cost of purchasing a similar value set by the cost of purchasing a similar substitute property. So basically, if you have two homes with the same location and all the attributes are the same, the less expensive one sells first because nobody will pay more if the same can be had for less. So let's highlight everything there under substitution pretty much. And here's an example. If you have three properties, they're exactly the same in size, shape, form, amenity, location, etc. But one is going for 300,000, one for 305, and one for 310. Which one would you buy?
Cheaper one.
You'd buy the cheaper one, right? 300,000. Well, you're not the only one that thought that. Somebody got to it before you. Now, which one would you buy?
The second
305.
cheaper one.
305, the next cheaper one. Okay, boom. All right. Well, somebody beat you to that one too. Guess what this is? This is a good transition to supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
You think this house is selling for 310? It's a
No.
last one, and the desire's still there, but the supply has diminished.
They're gonna go
What does
up,
that do to the value?
go up,
Down. You have to bring
Pushes
it
it up, pushes the value up.
up
Well,
because
Only one house left, and there's obviously people are jumping all over those properties and still has a demand for it. So the value of that property will go up. It'll probably sell for more than 310. That's a perfect example and a segue to supply and demand too. All right. So let's highlight, you already have highlighted under supply and demand the first sentence there, right?
Yeah.
We jump forward there. All right. So let's see what's next in the list. Conformity. Okay. So conformity is when properties conform to the neighborhood. Remember I told you about that guy who built that
Right.
$740,000 home in the $300,000 neighborhood?
Yeah.
All right. It did not conform to the neighborhood. So the value is not going to be maintained well there. I mean, he wasn't even able to establish the value off the bat correctly. And that drove him out of business. But look, conformity, you want the properties to conform to the neighborhood. If it's a single family home neighborhood, you're not going to find a high rise or an apartment building there. The neighborhoods retain their value better if they conform. Neighborhoods with apartment buildings, you'll usually see a lot of apartment buildings. So neighborhoods with multi-family homes, you'll see multi-family homes, and single-family homes and single-family homes. They zone them like that for a reason, because if you have neighborhoods where they let you build anything you want, you got a one family next to a four family, next to a three family, next to a different style home, next to a storefront, a commercial property, a garage. Properties don't maintain their value well in neighborhoods like that, where they allowed that to happen, because they are non-conforming to the neighborhood. Each one of those buildings are non-conforming, right? They let you put an auto shop in the middle of a residential neighborhood. You know, who wants to live next to an auto shop, hearing, you know, the tires, you know, the air tools going and all that? You know, it's not going to maintain well. Condominiums. They usually put restrictions on you. You can't go painting your front door a wacky color or something like that, or doing weird decorations or putting flowers outside other than anything that's approved. Why? Because they want them all to be conforming to each other. They want a similar look about them. Sometimes they have altering patterns of the colors perhaps, but they want to maintain some sort of conformity. because conformity is stable for value. All right. Non-conforming structures don't maintain their value in the neighborhood as well. So you need to understand the concept of conformity.
What do we highlight in the book for conformity? The whole paragraph? Because it seems like we're gonna need to know, we should highlight the whole paragraph.
Understand it, but there's nothing really to highlight there.
Okay,
All right. Just understand, you know,
understand the concept of it. Okay,
the concept of it. Correct.
gotcha.
The same thing for the next thing, regression and progression. Look, regression is values drop when the neighborhoods around you fall apart and the homes are not maintained. Or perhaps all the homes in your neighborhood are getting foreclosed on. Is that going to drive down the value of your home, which you're maintaining?
Mhm.
You're maintaining your home is beautiful, but all the homes around you are getting boarded up. What's that going to do to the value of your home?
So drop the value.
It's going to drop the value. But why? You're maintaining your home well. Well, because all ships
Surrounding.
rise with rising waters, but they also fall as well. So you're being dragged down with the neighborhood. Exactly. You're suffering from regression. And the opposite is true, progression. You guys see what's going on in my neighborhood around me? They're doing a lot of those examples of those old builder tricks of tearing down the whole house except for one wall, and then they build a whole new house around it and it's bigger. Are they increasing the value of that neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, the value's going up. I don't got to do nothing to my house and the value is going to be going up, right? And even before that, down the block in the other direction, people were not tearing down the whole entire house like that. They were just ripping off the second level and putting up a new level up top and blowing out the back and building it. You know, they didn't have to tear out the whole first level. They just added to the top and to the back. You know, these homes that they're building now, they're just tearing the whole thing down pretty much, leaving one original wall and building a whole brand new house. But my neighborhood's benefiting from progression. The people who are not doing anything, their values are going to be increasing as well because there's a demand in the neighborhood. The demand is not only increasing, but the values are going up because of these other properties. So this is the theory of regression and progression. You guys understand the theory? There's not really a line to highlight to understand there, but
Affected.
yeah.
Okay. Something happened in the neighborhood.
And then we have anticipation. You guys hear what they're building down the street over here? That's anticipation. In anticipation of something happening. Properties can increase or decrease in value depending on what it is that's going to be happening. I mean, are they going to be building the highway next to you? What is that going to do to your value?
Make it go down.
Yeah, unless it's a commercial property, right? Now you have highway frontage, then the value will go up for that. So it also depends on the use of the property, right? I mean, if it's a house and they're building a highway next to you, it's going to make the value go down. But if it's a commercial property, it'll go up. Let me see. Let me give you an example of anticipation. Another example of anticipation. Let me go to my web browser here for a second. I'm looking for something I want to open up and show you. There's a situation happened in my town. I live in Linden a couple of years back, quite a few years back already, actually. There was a they were proposing to build a NASCAR racetrack in Linden. You don't need to be a NASCAR fan to realize that any place in the United States where there's a NASCAR racetrack, people like NASCAR, even if you don't, right? It's got a big following. And in any city that there's a NASCAR racetrack in, it gets a huge economic boom to that area. Matter of fact, hotels are booked year in advance before a race. They build restaurants because those restaurants get a huge increase of business every time there's races there. So here's a story here on a racing forums I found here. With the proposal of a NASCAR racetrack at the Meadowlands that made little headway, the developer is pushing to build the racetrack in Linden, in an industrial section off the New Jersey Turnpike. It was actually going to be between the Turnpike and Wood Avenue in Linden. They were going to put actually an exit from the Turnpike right onto Wood Avenue, if you guys are familiar with the area. This would include a 100,000 seat grandstand, expandable to 140,000 feet. It was a 0.92, almost a mile speedway, according with NASCAR regulations, 400,000 square foot entertainment center, a 20-story hotel and conference center. This was all proposed by this developer, Morton Southkind, who has included a number of celebrities and political connections for people that were connected to that project that they were going to build. All right, now they proposed building this project. Let me see. He recently took his $401 million proposal to the city council members, and they wanted to see the aging industrial area redeveloped in the coming years. So, you know, the problem that came about was that NASCAR, the closest NASCAR tracks to New Jersey were Watkins Glen in the Poconos and Dover International Speedway. So if this track becomes a reality, racing will have come full circle in New Jersey. Why? You know, in 1954, the earliest Grand National races were held at Linden Airport. Some of the first Grand National races were held right here in Linden at the airport, which has a 2-mile stretch of roadway that goes around the runway in Linden. You had people like Paul Newman and all kinds of celebrities doing race car driving here. A little bit of a history there too for you. Interesting. Interesting. Here, let's take a look. So what do you think that's going to do to the property values in the area if they build the NASCAR racetrack here? So here's a little history of some 1949 Linden Airport racing to 54.
I think it's going to bring it up.
Absolutely, it would. It would be a huge economic boom to the area. So people started fighting for properties that were in the area where they were planning on building this proposed NASCAR racetrack, properties that are basically in marshland. That's like flood zone. You know, they were fighting over this previous property that's normally just soaking in water. They were fighting over this normally worthless land, because if this gets built, that land is going to increase in value tremendously. So I'm just showing you right now on the screen some of the historic photos of that Linden Airport, the raceway, the Grand National races that they used to hold there, you know, the historic ones. So you can see the overview of the airport, which is still there today. And it's got a big, you know, raceway around it. The roadway that goes around the actual runway was actually used for the racetrack. All right. Interesting stuff. It's history. A lot of people don't even know that. All right. So I even got in on this. Now, I didn't go buying land, but I've been dealing in intellectual property, domain names, since I was a kid and the internet started getting open to the public. I've been buying domain names for ages. So I found out through that public hearing what they were going to call what they were going to name this racetrack. They were going to call it Liberty Speedway. Guess who's the proud owner of libertyspeedway.com? I figured if I bought it, they would want to buy that domain name from me, you know, or I could lease it to them and make some money off of it. So, I mean, I didn't go buying properties around there, but I did make an investment, about $9. But you know what? I've done that, and I've made money off that stuff before. Now, anticipation, in anticipation of that raceway being built, it absolutely did contribute to the value of that property, to the properties there in the area. All right, so that's anticipation. Then we have increasing and diminishing returns. Oh, and I had the links right here. I didn't have to go searching for them. Yeah. And then we have increasing and diminishing returns. Like the kitchen makeover example that I told you about, you know, you get all your money back in doing that makeover up to a certain point in a kitchen that badly needs to be remodeled. But once you start going extreme with that kitchen makeover, your return will start diminishing on you. So it is what it is. Okay, now contribution is the money. I could give two of you $50,000 to do improvements on a home, and how you guys spend that money, how you use that contribution can be vastly different. And so because I gave you both $50,000 to do improvements, is that going to increase both of your home's value in the same way? No, it depends on how that contribution is used as well. So it's an addition that increases the value, absence which decreases value of any contribution back into the property. How contribution is used could also determine the value. Competition too. Profits attract competition, but excess profits attract ruinous competition. Let's look at commercial properties. If there's a lot of businesses in the area, but there's no food places to go eat for lunch, you think if some place opened up to serve lunch in the area that they would make a killing?
Yes.
Absolutely. But once that starts catching on, let's use, for example, let's say they put a McDonald's in the area. You know, now they'd make killer business because there's nothing else to eat in the area. What usually happens anytime they put in a McDonald's? Well, they put right next door.
Burger King.
Burger King, right? I mean, you see it in neighborhoods all the time. And then pretty soon they'll put a Taco Bell and something else there, right? So excess profits attract ruinous competition. That's that theory as well. And that needs to be taken into consideration when valuing properties, but that's more for commercial. And then lastly, change. Change affects value. Change in anything from the local market conditions, which could be affected by a lot of different things, like COVID, right? The jobs in the area, whether the big factory is shutting down, what's that going to do to the values of properties in the area? The big factory where everybody worked out of, if it shuts down, what is that going to do to the values of the properties in the area? As the demand won't be there because nobody needs to work there, so values will go down, right? Or maybe they're going to be opening up something new that's going to attract more people. Maybe the values of the properties there will go up. Politics can play a role in the value of the properties. Don't believe me? Look at California now. All that legislation with the shutdowns and taxes and ignoring law enforcement and all that stuff getting crazy and out of hand, people getting mugged and robbed at random and no policing to do anything about it, while your taxes are going up and getting increased, while they're welcoming and paying for illegals to come in. The politics is actually, for the first time in history, ever in history, people are leaving California in droves. So it's actually having a negative effect on the real estate in California. But look in New York City, people are leaving New York City. They're going to Florida. They're going to Texas, right? People who voted for that kind of politics are actually leaving it when it actually affects them personally. It's amazing. You could have a belief and you could be so passionate about it. You vote for one party or you vote for one politician, but then they start making decisions that start affecting you in a negative way. You're out of there. Look at people's actions rather than what they say. So politics can play a role. Improvements to the area. Are they doing improvements? Or are they letting the place become a slum, right? Is there contamination? Is there a lot of industry in the area? The weather. sometimes there's changes in the flood zones, and they remap the flood zones. There could be changes in the weather patterns and such. If this happens, it could affect the value, right? If you have a property that previously was not in a flood zone, but now it's designated a flood zone, could that affect the value of the property now that you got to have flood insurance?
Yes.
Plus the fact that the property could flood. Not everybody is willing to be living in a flood zone and take that risk. So change can also affect. So you see, a lot of this is just theory too, that also plays a role. But it is very real, because if I ask you these questions outright and you were to be honest about them, you tell me that they don't, that they won't play a role in your personal decision in purchasing or selling a real estate there, right? All right, so we have 3 approaches to value. So we have the CMA, the sales comparison approach. We as real estate agents use this approach the most. We do a CMA, the comparative market analysis, also referred to as the comparative approach or sales comparison approach. This is most often used for residential real estate by real estate agents and appraisers. Then we have the cost approach to value. This is used to determine the value of special purpose properties. Like how do you price a church? Probably not many churches in your neighborhood that have sold. So what are you going to use as a comparable, right? And they don't generate income the way other commercial properties do. So you have to use a special approach to determine the value of special purpose buildings like churches, public buildings, or other sorts of special purpose or unique properties. You know, if you have a unique home that may not be comparable to anything else, you have to use the cost approach to try to determine the value. And then we have, lastly, the income approach to value. This is used on any property that generates income. So let's highlight 3 approaches to value: sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income approach. Sales comparison, cost, and income approach. Sales comparison, cost, and income approach to value. All right. Now, so the sales comparison approach, we're going to turn the page. This talks a lot about the sales comparison approach on this page. This talks a lot about it. All right. But let's just take a look at my slide. My slide's got good notes on it. It's the approach most often used by real estate licensees. Actually, you should snap a picture of this. This is good notes to study from. It's best for residential property valuation. It compares the subject property to similar comparable properties, which we call comps for short. Now, they're comparable in size, style, location, and amenity to the subject property that have recently sold. We only look at sold properties when trying to determine value. Now, our CMA reports that we use in presentations, we usually put in there actives, pendings, solds, and expireds, because we're doing a presentation trying to get a listing, and then we want to compare them to try to give a presentation for somebody when trying to price their property. Here, don't do this because they'll expire. Here's some evidence of that, you know. But when you're just trying to determine the value of the property and you're not trying to do a presentation or report, which is what an appraiser does, they're the one telling you what it's worth. They only need to look at what properties have actually sold for, because the sold properties are the only ones that affect the price, the valuation. Okay. So we're going to make adjustments now to those comparable properties, sales prices that have already sold, to try to match it up and make it exactly like the current property that you're trying to determine its value for, that we're going to refer to as the subject property. So when trying to value a subject property, the comparables that we pull up that are similar are usually not 100% exactly the same. So we have to make adjustments for the differences in their condition, the size, maybe amenities that one may have and the other doesn't. Maybe one's got 2 bathrooms and the other one has 1 bathroom. You have to figure out what the value of the bathrooms are and then make an adjustment based on that. Now, what I'm going to be teaching you here for exams is to understand when do you add and when do you subtract from a comparable property's value. Okay, now I'll get into that in just a moment, but let's see. When you pull properties that have recently sold, what is recently? Well, definitely nothing more than a year. But you really want to keep the sales of comparables within 3 to 6 months, within the last 3 to 6 months. If you start going to the year or more, now we have to start adjusting for time, because the market, the real estate market, fluctuates over time. And the beginning of the year to the end of the year, could the property values changed a lot between that time?
Yes.
So you really can't use a property as a comparable that sold at the beginning of the year if you're at the end of the year, because the price has changed altogether by then, unless you also make an adjustment for the variation over that period of time. Now, that CMA workshop I told you about from Ottawa, the appraisal group, they tell you how to make the adjustments for the time factor. And there's actually a formula you got to look into in order to calculate that adjustment, which we're not going to get into here right now. You would take one of those Ottawa classes for. Now, I'm gonna start building. I've taken that Ottawa class enough. I'm going to start creating my own version of a pricing class like that I'm going to start offering to people too. It's just but I would still suggest taking their classes for knowing the market change. Because as the market fluctuates, how do you know how much a 1 bedroom or square footage is worth, or an amenity is worth, or what have you? How do you know? Because that could change over time. You have to look and see within this last year, how much were people paying? How much more were you getting for an extra bathroom? Things like this. They analyze by looking at the sale of every home in the state of New Jersey within the last year. And then they base it off of that, which will be a little bit more accurate than just pulling 3 comparables and then trying to make adjustments based on 3 comps, right? If you're using the right pricing to make the adjustments between the comps. This is why a lot of agents guesstimate on the differences in value for the feature that was different, whether it was how many bedrooms, how many baths, or the condition of the house. A lot of agents will use their knowledge to make a educated guesstimate, right? Where this is actually the Ottawa group, if you take that class and they give you that chart, it tells you it's not just a guesstimate, it's using the data that they've aggregated from the sale of every home in the state within the last year in New Jersey. And I'll just give you a teaser here of the chart for the adjustment guides that they give. Let me see if I got the right adjustment guide here. They gave us a lot of supplemental guides for reference. Let me make sure I'm pulling up the right one here. Okay, here's one of the guides that they gave us. I'll give you guys just a little teaser because I want you to take these courses. It's actually a good class. If the property's valued in the 250,000 price range up to 400,000, up to 750, 1250, or 2.5 million and above, how much will the property value be affected if it's on a busy road? Well, first of all, is that going to increase the value if it's on a busy road or decrease for residential
Decrease.
property?
Decrease it.
Yeah, residential property, that'll be a decrease. So if you're looking at a property in the $250,000 price range, well, if it is $250,000, that's a $6,000 decrease. If it's less than 250, how much are you going to adjust it? Not by 6,000, but you're going to subtract 2.4% of whatever its overall value is because of the fact that it's on a busy road. But what if it's on a safe road, a private street, or like a cul-de-sac street? It'll actually increase the value, $5,000 or 2%. Now, where do they get these numbers from? I just told you, from the sale of every home in the state within the last year. They break down the differences of every home that's sold in the last year in public and private sales through the appraisals that they get, and then they disseminate, and then they break down that information to the slightest minutia of differences to be able to come up to these different adjustments for those differences. Because listen, here in this class, I'm just teaching you when to make an adjustment. You need to know when to add or subtract from a comparable value. That's what I'm teaching you, is when you add or subtract from the comparables value when determining value of a property. This guide teaches you how much to adjust. Now, without taking this class and getting this information from them on a regular basis, you would have to apply your own knowledge, guys. Use your experience, make an educated guesstimate, which could be a lot more difficult. Instead, here you're using solid concrete data that appraisers use. So if you value properties using this information, do you think that you're going to be closer to the appraisal with your valuation? Yeah, you're going to be better in pricing properties. Okay. Now the next thing comes about is so the location has to be relatively the same. You don't want to pick properties that are in a different municipality, different city services, different tax rates, different school systems. You want to keep that comparable property in the same neighborhood if at all possible. The other side of town you really don't want to use. You want to keep it in the same relative area when you're trying to value properties. Don't go too far out is what I'm saying, and keep it in the same town. I know your property may be right next to the border of another town, but it's not in the other town, which may be nicer or worse. So you don't really want to price it using comps from that town. You want to use it comps from the same town. You guys follow what I'm getting at here? What I'm saying to you?
Yep.
All right. Physical features should be similar. And if they're not, then you're going to make adjustments. What are you trying to do with the adjustments? For instance, if the property we're trying to determine a value for has 4 bedrooms, and we have a comp that's excellent comp, that house is exactly, that comparable property is exactly like the subject property, except it only has 3 bedrooms. What do we need to do? We need to do this. Okay, you guys see me on screen?
Yep.
We have the subject property and we have a comparable property. If the comparable property is missing a feature that the subject property has, we're going to determine the value of that feature. In this case, it's a bedroom. We're going to need to determine how much that bedroom would be worth. And then are we going to add to the comparable property's value to make it the same as the subject property, or are we going to subtract from the comparable property's value?
You would add it.
You add it so that you're going to pretend it had 4 bedrooms as well.
Right.
And then you would know the exact price that property should be worth.
Right, right.
Because the comparable property already sold. So you know what it's getting out there in the market. But the only difference was it was missing a bedroom. So if you determine the value of what one bedroom is, you add it to its sales price that you already know what it sold for. Boom. Now you know what this property is worth.
But would it be comparative if it's one bedroom less?
Yes, it could still be a comparable. Yes. The only time that it becomes a little bit sketchy using it as a comparable is when we're comparing a 2-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom, because the overall house tends to be smaller when we're talking about bedrooms. And look, even when we're talking about bedrooms, we're really talking about square footage anyway. If you were to actually look at appraisal reports, even though they mark bedrooms on there, they don't base value based on number of bedrooms. And I'm going to show you why. Oh, geez, let me see if that whiteboard ever opened up. Give me a second here. I have to minimize the slideshow here for a second. Yeah. Yeah, damn thing didn't open up. Hold on, give me a second. I'll talk to you in the meantime. So I've come across situations like this, where you had 2 properties next door to each other that were exactly the same. 2 properties next door to each other, exactly the same. One had 3 bedrooms, one had 5. Same exact square footage, same exact house. One had 5 bedrooms, but it didn't have the living room. It split the living room and made 2 bedrooms out of the living room. That's why it had 5 bedrooms and the neighboring house only had 3. So it doesn't have any additional square footage. So you think the number of bedrooms, because it has 2 more bedrooms, makes the house worth more?
No.
No, it's got the same square footage. So you got to take, oh, let me ask you another question, by the way. When it comes to bedrooms, can you count a basement room as a bedroom?
No.
No, nothing below grade can be considered a bedroom. Okay. Now there are some houses that may be grandfathered by the municipality for that. If they had a separate exit, they may be grandfathered for it. Sometimes you got apartments below ground stuff, but generally you cannot have a bedroom in the basement. You can't have living space in the basement. So what makes something a bedroom? If it's above ground, what's required in order for it to be a bedroom? Can any room be considered a bedroom?
Doesn't have to have like a closet.
Has to have a closet.
Mm-hmm.
Check this out. I've seen people go to what's that store? IKEA. I've seen people go to IKEA and get one of them portable closets, you know, like for putting towels in. Will that count as a closet and make it a bedroom?
Yes.
No, it won't.
Oh, really?
But if they bolt it to the wall, it does.
Okay.
I've seen this with appraisers before, where one appraiser saw that they had this, they had a closet in the room, and it was just there loose in the room. One of them IKEA closets is just sitting there in the room. They're like, you can't count that as a closet. This isn't a bedroom. And it's not part of the structure.
Wow.
And so I was just goofing with him. I was like, what if they bolt it to the wall? And he's like, oh, then it would. And I was like, are you for real? And he was like, yeah. And so I was like, hold on, I'm gonna go out to my car. I'm gonna bolt this thing to the wall right now.
Oh, wow. You did it?
Yeah. Well, I got the owner's approval first. I screwed the thing to the wall,
Right.
you know.
Wow.
But
So was it like a small space? That's why she didn't
yeah,
have.
I mean, it was like just like a closet, because otherwise there was no.
No, the room
closet
itself was the
in the
room
room
itself too.
Yeah, so.
The room was
we had a
small or
space
was
now.
okay?
No, it was like a linen, it was like a linen thing with the doors where you could put linens in it, you know, towels and linens and such. So I bolted the wall, boom, they counted.
No,
it
no,
as
I'm
a bedroom.
asking the size of the room itself. Was it too small for her not to have original?
No, just I guess the room just didn't have a closet in it. Maybe they just, maybe they just made the room with the intention of people having dressers and,
Oh, okay.
you know, armoires and such, you know,
Mhm.
that would hold your clothing. But
Uh-huh.
appraisers these days, they count square footage anyway,
Mhm.
but they won't mark it as an additional bedroom though. All right. But so, I mean, when it comes down to it, they're only looking at the square footage really, but they need to still mark down the number of bedrooms in their appraisal reports. So
Mhm.
just an interesting factoid there. We leave off. All right, so and then we also have to make adjustments for, well, we also have to look at the terms and conditions of the property sale. When you're using a comparable property and you're looking at the price of how much it sold for, you got to find out, was there any seller concession involved here? Seller concession would be proceeds given back to the buyer to use for their closing costs, perhaps. Or was there concessions given for repairs needed on the house? If so, then that sale price is affected and the concessions should be subtracted from its overall sale price for the value of it. All right, so appraisers sometimes may give you calls as a real estate agent if you have a listing that you sold and maybe some information was not clear in it, and they're like doing an appraisal for another property. They're trying to use your property that you sold as a comp. They may call you up to find out some information, particulars about your property. And I've had appraisers call me plenty of times on my listings for things like that. And sometimes they're nice and they're appreciative of it. And what they'll do is they'll, especially if they're an appraiser not from the area, and they need, they're asking you to maybe run some comps for them from your MLS, because they're not a member of the MLS in the area, and you pull some comps for them and send it off to them. I've had appraisers send me like Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks gift cards as appreciation for running a few comps for them. Now, I didn't solicit that from them, and me running the comps was not contingent upon them paying me either. I was doing it for free, and they just gave me a thank you, you know. But you got to run it by your brokers to make sure that it's okay. Let your brokers know about that too. You don't want it in any way to be construed a kickback for anything, right? Okay, so the last part here is you need to know when to adjust for the differences. They give you a little saying here, which is at the bottom of this chart on page 279. They have a sample CMA here. I don't like the layout, the way the wording that they use, same or poorer or better. I don't like that kind of wording. I'd rather they just not use wording. I'd rather they say what condition it's in, good, poor, average, you know, and then we can make an adjustment based on that, you know. Look at the lot sizes here, 60 by 135 feet on the subject property, and the comparable, same, larger, okay? We don't do that. When we do our actual CMAs, we'll have the square footage for each one side by side so we could really compare them. All right. So once again, when do you add to and when do you subtract to a comparables value? Well, let's take a look at this chart I put up here, which I need to redo because this one's a little bit screwy and messed up too. You know. All right. We have a subject property we're trying to determine the value for. The subject property has 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a 1-car garage. The style of property is a Cape Cod, And so I pulled up all comps here that are comparable. They're the same architectural style. Comparable 1 sold for 300,000, comparable 2 sold for 315,000, comparable 3 sold for 320,000. Now we're trying to determine how much this property is going to be worth based on the sales here. I mean, I could just take a price range here and be like, oh, it's going to sell anywhere between $300,000 and $320,000. Okay, I could just be lazy and do that, or I could try to get a more accurate pricing on it. So what we should list it for? We're going to list it on the lower end or on the upper end of that. Well, let's make adjustments for the differences. Comparable 1 property had only 3 bedrooms. And if we're estimating that in this area, an extra bedroom would go for $5,000, we're going to add to its value. Why are we adding to this comparable property's value?
Because the other 2 have.
Because it's missing a bedroom. It has 1 less bedroom. So we're going to figure out what that value of that bedroom is, and then we're going to add to bring it up to the same level. If it had 5 bedrooms, we would be subtracting the value to bring it down to the same level. You guys understand what I'm talking about? We're trying to make it at the same level. We're trying to pretend that it was exactly the same as the subject property, meaning it's at the same level. So if it's missing a bedroom, it's not at the same level. We
So
would
then you
have,
have to add it.
we have to determine the value of that bedroom and then add to the comparable value to bring it up to the same level. If it had 5 bedrooms, we'd have to subtract the value of a bedroom. You guys understand that concept I'm trying to get across to you?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, but Victor,
Yeah.
what I see on the screen, like what my eyes, got attracted to, the subject property is similar to comp 3, except for that extra garage. So for me, I would be thinking, oh, let me just find the difference of that.
Well, look,
Um,
comp 3, that's what we're doing. And yeah, but you need to have at least 3 comparables. You can't just cherry pick one.
Oh, you still have to go through all 3. I see. Okay.
You need to have a minimum of 3 comparable properties.
Okay. Okay.
So we pick out, let's go to the comp 3. The only difference is it has a 2-car garage where this one has a 1-car. So what's a garage estimated to be worth?
Right.
Each space $10,000 here.
Right.
So we're just going to subtract $10,000 from its
Mhm.
sale price of $320.
Right.
And if you do the total adjustment on it, if that property was exactly like the subject, it would have sold for $310.
Right. Right.
But look at that. That would end up being the cheaper of them all. Because look at
Yeah,
these
got
ones.
it. Yep.
That's why you can't cherry pick properties. You have
Yeah.
to, look, if we have this one, it has a difference of it's missing a half a bath and it's missing a garage.
Right.
So we're going to have to add the value of, it's missing a bedroom and a half bath and it's
Right.
missing a garage. So we're going to have to add the value of 1 bedroom to it
Mhm.
to make sure that comp is at the same level.
Right.
Now let's look at the baths. It's missing a half a bath. So we're going to have to figure out the value of a half bath and add that in.
Mhm.
And it's missing the value of a garage. So we have to add the value of a garage in
Mm.
to
How
its
would you
sale
do
price.
that?
What's that?
How would you do that? How would you add the value of a garage if that's $10,000?
Well, here we're doing it. We're making the adjustments to the comparables because we know that this property sold for 300,000. So we're trying to make the estimates. If the differences
Later.
the value of the differences were added to that property, how much would it have sold for? Well, 5,000 for the bedroom, 2,500 for a half bath, and $10,000 for a garage. That's a grand total of, what's that? 10, 15, 1750. So $17,500 we're going to add to its overall, and here's the adjusted total value, 1750.
What?
Now we're going to do the same thing for comparable 2. What's the differences here? It's 4 bedrooms, so is the subject property. It's 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, so it's only missing a half bath. That's the only difference. And how much is the half bath worth? 2,500. So we're going to add or subtract to the comparable to the comparable property's value, the 2,500, to bring it to the same level as the subject property.
Add it.
Boom. And that brings it in the 317,500 range too. So the range now, we have a shorter range now. Instead of between 300 and 320, we have a range of 310 to 317.5 that property will sell in. So you see how we narrowed down the range a little bit? Now, is this property going to sell at the lower end of that spectrum or the higher end of that spectrum? Well, take a look at the condition of the property and how it shows. And then use your educated opinion based off of that, of where you should be pricing it. You see,
Okay.
so we're not just guessing, we're actually using solid data for other comparable properties with similar features and making adjustments for the differences to come up with our price. This is how we do it.
Okay, how do you come up with the?
Well, right now I'm just teaching you to know when to add and when to subtract from a comparables value. I'm not telling you,
I understand. Where do you get the figure from? One
Okay.
bedroom, half,
like I was saying,
the one on the left side?
wait, what?
He's
The
using
one
a
on the left
guide.
side, this one's, yeah. No, bring it down. Bring your mouse down. Over
He's
here on the
using a
left side.
guide.
On the left side, on our left side. Up there, the second, all this bed,
Are you
yeah,
talking about
bedroom.
All right, yeah,
One
that's right.
bedroom,
Okay, hold on.
half.
Hold on, let me finish. That's what I was saying. Listen, that's what I was saying. I'm here to teach you when to know when do you add and when do you subtract from a comparable value. How much to add or subtract, how much is one of these differences worth, depends on the market that you're in. You need to know your marketplace. All right. Now, how are you going to know that? Through experience. Well, you guys are getting started brand new, so you're not going to know that. You're going to need to get some sort of a guidance. This is why I suggested that you take this CMA workshop, and then you could use something like a guide like this that would give you that adjustments. Look, they tell you here, a half bath for a home in the $250,000 price range is equal 1.2% of the home's value.
Okay, that's where you get it from. That's what I'm trying to.
But this
find out.
changes every year. This changes every year because remember, the real estate values in the marketplace, they fluctuate. They go up, they go down. And there's a lot of factors that contribute to that, right? We went over all the factors that contribute to it. I mean, you have the economy attributes to those factors, for crying out loud, right? Look, if we back it up, what attributes to those change? Look, change, competition, contribution, increase, any improvements that you've done, anticipation in the neighborhood, progression, regression, conformity, demand. So it's not just the physical things that could affect the property's value over time as well. So those numbers for those individual features will be affected every year. This is why I told you I try to take this class every year so that I can get this adjustment figure. And where do they get this adjustment from? Based on the sale of every home in New Jersey in the last year. Okay, now this is better data than you being an experienced agent in the area and you knowing the area. Because even that, the real estate in your market, you're not going to know how much a half bath is worth or not. You're still taking a guess. You're still taking a guess. Your broker would be doing the same thing. They'd be taking a guesstimate at it. How would you know for sure? Well, you wouldn't. How would you know with more certainty though? You would take a class like this that gives you an adjustment guide like this. They even give you formulas based on the age of the house. You'd have to make an adjustment for the age difference in the houses. Maybe one of these houses is a lot older than the subject property. You'd have to make an adjustment for the age of the house. And how do you do that? Well, they say here, you take the sales price that you end up calculating at the overall end, times it by 60%, and then times it by 0.005 times the age difference will give you that's the formula appraisers use. Okay. And what about condition and decor? Adjust for the dollar cost of repairs. If the cost exceeded 0.5% of the home value, then adjust for two times the costs. You know, they give you formulas for calculating all this stuff. It's not just an easy straight, oh, here's the number that you use. Okay. For square footage. Well, they estimate that square footage in your average home in a $250,000 price range is going for $45 a square foot in this last year. In the $400,000 price range, it would be $75 a square foot, $100, you know, depending on the overall value of the home will dictate what the per square footage price goes for. But this could fluctuate every year as well. This is why you got to keep up on this stuff. This is why I said, don't just take the CMA workshop from them, take their seasonal workshops, or even better, not just the seasonal workshop, subscribe to their monthly market forecast that they do. Remember I told you they got this, where is it? Where the heck was it? OTT. Okay, so you go to their, you subscribe to their monthly housing workshop, and it's called Market Track. They send you in emails every month, updates, and sometimes even if there's changes in the market, even because maybe changes in politics or job market or something that affects the market and their prediction, they'll send you out another update to that. You know, this is why if you're planning on being in this business and you want to be good at it, you got to be informed. You got to stay up on your education. You know, how does a professional athlete do their job so good?
Practice.
Which do you think they spend more time doing? Their job, playing the featured game, or practicing?
Practice.
Practicing. Then why is it that in the real estate industry, salespeople spend more time doing the job than practicing? By, when I say practicing, I mean educating themselves, keeping themselves up on the rules and the factors that play a role in performing their job. That would be your practice, keeping up on these things, educating yourself. All right, you got to do that. I mean, this could be as simple as, instead of just doing the market research yourself, you could actually do the market research by using their research. These are the professional guys that are doing it all day in and out. I mean, they're the consultants for they're the consultants for who? Let's look what were their client lists again? Let's look at some of these people. You think that their opinion is not valued? Look at some of these companies. We got billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies here that are taking these guys' advice. Why shouldn't you? You've got financial institutions. You've got developers, banks, investment companies, railroads, colleges, government, law firms, healthcare systems taking these guys' advice. Why wouldn't you take the help that's available for you? Right? I suggest that you do. Instead of trying to just cherry pick a couple comps yourself to come up and try to determine. Now, it used to be in the past, before I ever heard of this Ottawa group, or this was available to us, because I mean, these groups are not available all over the country, you know, but there was it's something, there's a book that comes out. You guys can probably subscribe to it. You gotta look it up. I haven't had it in years. I've been using this one because this is local. So why not use what's local for you for good advice? But in the past, I used to buy what's called the Builder's Blue Book. A Builder's Blue Book is basically, it comes out every year, just like this Ottawa's thing, but they give you those updates for market predictions as well. But you could take these classes every year to find out these differences in value here for the different features. But the Builder's Blue Book is similar to this, because the Builder's Blue Book will tell you how much half a bath is worth, and what kind of home improvements are more likely to pay back the most in this past year or in the coming year? Which improvements will pay back the most, and how much would it be worth? Well, how much it would be worth is a little bit more of a guesstimate for them, but which improvements will pay back the most is more along the line to kind of more accurate information you get from builders' blue books. Okay, and that's coming from builders from new construction, basically, new construction or that are doing home improvements. This way they know how to value and market their services, and they know how much their properties should be valued at based off of those differences. All right. So anyway, this class, I'm just here to do this. So you guys are not going to have those comps and subject property markers when you're taking an exam. So if during an exam, they ask you, they'll give you a long profile. They'll say, well, the subject property that we're asked to list for sale, how much should we list the property for if comparable one property is valued at this? And keep in mind, they're not going to give you a chart. They're just going to give this to you in a big sentence paragraph format. The comparable property one has 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, blah, 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 and this is valued at that, that's valued at that, that's valued at that. So it's probably going to be a long question. You guys should be busting out scrap paper and writing subject property, comparable property, you know, side by side like this. And now you can make the adjustments for the differences. All right. I'm teaching you how to do that, how to structure it. Look at how it's structured. You're putting the property side by side, and then you're going to line up their differences. So boom, it pops out at you instead of just trying to read the sentence and remember it. Right?
Thank you.
And now, when do you adjust for a comparable property's difference? Well, if this is the subject property and this is a comparable property, this subject property had 4 bedrooms, comparable property had 3, what do we got to do to bring it up to its same level? We subtract or add the value of the bedroom.
To add it.
All right.
Boom. There you go. So you guys are gonna be taking exams going like this with your hands. But that's okay. I'm good with visuals. I like visuals. I don't like to just try to do it in my head. I like to, okay, I can understand that better as a visual. I'm a visual person. I like to see that. I could understand that than just trying to figure it out in my head. You know what I'm saying? And I showed you what I'm doing with my hands. I'm actually doing this with my hand. I'm doing when I'm making these adjustments with just my hand, you know, this is what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Okay. So don't worry, it'll come with time and experience. Or if you take one of these classes and have the adjustment guides, you guys get a jump start, and you'll probably be even better than those people who have the experience that are just doing guesstimates of the value of a half bath and such, because you'll have a guide like this that was prepared for you by appraisers. Which one do you think is better? Right. All right.
But Victor, don't the brokers have like software or anything that you could use where you could just punch in the numbers and it kind of calculates it for you? Or do you always have to do it manually this way?
You do have software that will calculate it built into the MLS.
Isn't that what most agents are using then?
Well, there's other softwares that you guys can use as well. Remember, I told you about NAR RPR.
Yes.
Okay, you got the website, narrpr.com, or you also have the app for your cell phones. But NAR RPR, I got it loading up here on screen. Okay, you could use this to create a CMA. Right, and you could plug in all that information and pull it from all the MLSs that you're a member of. You could do searches. So you could use this software to do that too, to create that CMA, and it'll do the adding. It'll make the adjustments for the differences for you as well, but you need to tell it how much to adjust for the differences. It doesn't tell you that. The software is stupid. It just pulls in the information from the sources, but it doesn't do all the calculations for you. You can have it do an automated valuation guesstimate, but that's just as good as what you see on Zillow. Dookie. You need the human intervention there. All right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So sales comparison approach, the CMA. Once again, this is not the first time I showed you this picture. This is how the homeowner views their house when we value it. This is how the realtor sees the house, and this is the way the appraiser sees it. Why is the appraiser here and we're here? Why are we still off a bit? Because remember in that previous slide right here, I showed you a lot of agents will just take, oh, here's what the properties is sold for. Here's your price range between 300 and 320. And the agents will probably then pick up the higher section. And that's what they'll price it at. And then it'll get an offer in that range, but then it won't appraise because the appraisal range is actually between 310 and 317.5. So it's going to be a little bit lower than what the real estate agent estimated it at. So that's why, because the appraiser does make all the adjustments, and most of the agents that are out there, they don't bother with all these details. They just take whatever the property sold for and they take that price range and then they guesstimate from there. And that's why you'll see their list price to sale price ratio is off a bit. And this image is a good way to try to depict that. Homeowners are still way up here with their values. You've got to talk them down to reality. And sometimes that's like banging your head against a brick wall, even though you're showing them empirical evidence based off of what other homes have sold for in the area. They're like, well, I still want to see if I could get more for mine. You know, and there's something else you got to take into consideration too. Let's say that we looked up all of these comps. We looked up all these comps. We made all the adjustments of what the properties have sold for. You know, right now we're seeing a shortage of listing inventory in the area. So what is that telling you? Where's the real estate? What's going on in the real estate market right now if we're seeing a bit of a shortage?
It's a seller's market.
That means that there's a demand for the properties right now, right?
Yep.
So what happens when there's a demand and prices are going up, but the amount of properties available is going down?
Price increases.
Demand is going up and supply is down. Supply
Are the houses?
and demand.
House prices goes up.
The price goes up. All right.
Uh,
Isn't that one of the theories we just went over? The theory of supply and demand?
Yep.
So even though we just valued a property based on supportable evidence, you also have to take into consideration the theories that we learned about. Supply and demand was one of those theories. So you have to make an adjustment for supply and demand. Now, how much are you going to adjust it for supply and demand? That Ottawa class actually gave me a little formula. Let me see if I have it here.
oh, geez.
Supply and demand. Let's see if I have it here.
So if the demand of the houses go up and no, okay.
So if the demand remains constant
Mhm,
or is increasing,
mhm.
but the supply is dwindling, there's not much of the product, are you willing to pay more for that product?
Oh, okay, that makes sense because it's select few of them.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. Just look at the pair of shoes that you want, you know?
Mhm.
It's the last pair on the shelf.
So you're willing to pay more and you really like it.
I'll give you more for them. I gotta have them, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I have to look through this to find out the formula. I got to look through my notes. I took a bunch of notes. I got them in another sheet here too in that package, and I got it buried in paperwork over here next to me. So I got to go through it, but they actually gave us a formula on how to be able to exactly calculate how much the price should go up because of supply and demand. All right. They actually gave us a formula for that. I do not have it here because I took the notes on it. I got it written down and I'd have to go through them. And I don't want to waste your time on that right now because that's not going to help you get your license. It'll help you do your job, but it won't help you get your license. So I'm not going to waste your time on that right at this moment. Okay, so okay, let's go about the cost approach, which is based on substitution. So let's highlight the cost approach. And then we're going to highlight the first sentence on page 279. The cost approach is most helpful in the appraisal of special purpose buildings such as schools, churches, and public buildings. And then in the next paragraph, we're going to highlight the last sentence. The cost approach is sometimes called the appraisal by summation. And the cost approach consists of 5 steps. And then these steps start here. You could highlight just the numbers of the steps. And then beneath it, right, continues on next page, or draw an arrow to the next page. And on the next page, 290, continue putting a highlighted box, I guess, around those 5 steps. And I have them all here on this one slide. So you could either go by your notes that are highlighted and broken up here, or you could take a snapshot of this here too. So the cost approach is based on substitution. Let's look at this slide. Appraisal by sometimes it's called the appraisal by summation. Summation shows you that they're going to be doing some math, right? So appraisal by summation using the cost approach to value of a special purpose, unique or one of a kind or public property that may not have comparables or generate income in a normal fashion, like schools, churches, libraries, city hall, a custom or unique home, or a church, like I told you. Oh, we got that there. I did have it on the list. I already said it. Okay. Now, the approach most often used by appraisers, not by salespeople, because of the knowledge that's required to do this approach to value. Now, you will get an exam question about this, and it'll probably be a math problem about how to do this, which is really strange since we don't really use this approach in real life as real estate agents. All right. Now, how would the appraiser use the cost approach? Well, here's an exam question for you just in itself. The cost approach to value is also known as
Appraisal by summation.
Okay.
or they could give it to you the other way, actually. I think they do it the other way. An appraisal by summation is also known as the cost approach. The cost approach is used to determine the value of what kind of properties. Or they'll ask you, they'll give you a property and then they'll say, which approach to value would you use on this property? Okay. Or they'll say the cost approach or appraisal by summation. Which property would you use that cost approach or appraisal by summation to determine the value of? Schools, churches, public buildings, and unique properties, right? So
Yeah.
how does the appraiser do it? Okay, there's 5 steps here. First, they estimate the value of that land if it was vacant. That land in this neighborhood today, how much would it cost to buy that land? Just the land that that building is sitting on today in this neighborhood, if it were put to its highest and best use. Well, what's the highest and best use? the most profitable use that the land can be used for. So how much would it cost to buy that land today to be used for its highest and best use? That's step one that the appraiser does. Then they estimate the cost to construct all the site improvements, meaning running the water lines, the sewer lines, the electricity, then actually building the structure there. Now, there's two approaches that they could use for building the structure. Are they going to build the exact same structure or a similar structure that'll serve the same purpose that's not necessarily exact duplicate? Like if you're going to value a church, for example, are you going to try to determine a value based on building another replacement church that's an exact duplicate using the same materials like the beautiful granite and carvings and ornate designs and such, which will probably be very expensive? Or are you going to try to value that property based on just having another structure that could house so many people to come together and worship? Right? That would be replacement cost. Replacement cost is building another structure that's similar, that serves the same purpose, but is not exactly an exact duplicate. Reproduction, on the other hand, would be constructing an exact duplicate at today's costs. So let's actually, on page 280, on the third paragraph, second paragraph underneath that numbered list, let's highlight reproduction cost is a dollar amount required to construct an exact duplicate of the subject building at current prices. And replacement cost of the property would be construction cost at the current prices of the building that are not necessarily an exact duplicate, but it serves the same purpose of the original structure. Okay, so the appraiser is going to have to determine, am I going to be using the replacement costs and or reproduction costs for this building? Well, it depends. You know, now the appraiser has an approach here. Determining reproduction or replacement cost is on the next page. They show the thought process that the appraiser has to, there's a couple of options that they could choose. We don't need to get that deep into it. We're not going to be doing this stuff. And we don't need to know this because we're not the appraiser. Okay. And we're not going to be getting those questions that deep into it on exam. All right. But why do we get appraisals? For what reason do we get appraisals?
The value of the property.
Well, that's what an appraisal is. But why do we get it? Why do we care?
The mortgage?
For getting financing to purchase properties, correct. But there's other reasons too. Let me temporarily go forward a couple slides. I do have a, wait. Yeah, that's later, much later on. Let me see if I have a slide here for that. Reasons that we get appraisals done. Okay, here we go. I have to move far ahead. Okay, so later in this chapter, there's these things here. The reasons why people get appraisals to begin with. This is on page 285. You could find this on page 285. Let me go to that slide really quick and right in there, page 285. Okay, we're on slide 40. Page 285. I'll cast it back to the screen now. All right, so on page 285, you have this thing here. We get appraisals done for estate purposes when somebody dies to find out what the value of the estate is. For divorce proceedings, to how we're going to distribute those assets, right? For financing reasons, when you're looking to buy real estate, right? To get the financing to purchase it. For taxation purposes, what we call that the assessed value. Because remember, for value used for tax purposes, that's called the ad valorem tax. That means according to the value of the property. And what is a value used for taxation purposes? It's called an assessed value. It's different from market value, right? Relocation reasons. Sometimes we have corporate relocation companies that may purchase the property. That's another time when we get appraisals. For condemnation, what's condemnation? Well, that's when a property is being taken away by eminent domain. They have to justly compensate the owner for that property. And condemnation is the process of taking the property through the courts. They need to get an appraisal done so that they know what just compensation is. For insurance reasons, if you have a fire in your house burns down, or a car drives through the front of your house, you know, you're going to call the insurance company to make an insurance claim, or a tree falls on your house, right?
Right.
You're going to call your insurance company. You're going to need to have an appraisal done on that property. That appraiser, or they call them an adjuster, comes out. But there has to have been an appraisal on that property to try to figure out how much the insurance company is going to pay you to fix the property back up. Anybody here ever making a claim on their house have to call the insurance company? If you ever did,
I did.
if you ever did they give you like a low ball figure that they were willing to pay?
They were actually really good, my insurance company,
Oh, they were?
surprisingly.
Good. But you know
Yeah.
what? Usually you could always fight them, because the adjuster that the insurance company sends out, who are they working for? Not for you. They're
No,
working
the
for
insurance company. Right.
You could always get more money out of your insurance company if you hire a private your own adjuster, your own private adjuster, okay, which they'll work for you, and they'll always get you more money out of the deal. For example, let's just say your kid drops a bowling ball, or your husband drops a bowling ball on the tile floor in your kitchen, right? The insurance company's adjuster will come out and they'll say, okay, how much will it cost to replace that tile over there in the middle of the floor? And they'll pay you for that. If you hire your own adjuster, they're going to come out, they're going to be like, well, we can't just replace the tile in the middle of the floor, because you know that if you go and you buy a box of tiles right now, that they're not going to match the tiles of the rest of the floor in the kitchen.
Right.
So we're going to have to
Now-
replace
now that
all
I'm
the
thinking-
tiles in the kitchen.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think we actually had our own independent adjusters. I didn't realize they were adjusters. They weren't. They were like people who gave us, I guess, estimates on what the cost of the work would be.
Well, they have to be licensed too. They're actually it's called a private adjuster.
So maybe they were, because they ended up submitting their estimates to the insurance company, and that's how I
You got
got
more out of
everything
it.
covered, and like a ton of, like, they were great. So,
Yeah. Otherwise, the insurance company, they're going to offer you just a little bit, you know,
right.
and it's like, well, this barely covers my expenses here, you know.
Right.
But if you hire your own private adjuster, they'll be like the example that I just created here. You know, tiles, when they're made, you know, the mix of the materials and stuff, the colors are not going to be matching. If you ever bought a box of tiles, if you look at them, they have lot numbers on them. For when they were made, they were all made in the same batches and lots. Then you know that those tiles will match because they had the same mix compound in them. But any different tiles, even though they look similar, they're going to be off a little bit in coloring, you know. So they'll get you, a private adjuster will get you the fee to replace the entire floor there in the kitchen. And then wait a minute, those tiles are going underneath the cabinets. So we're gonna have to pull out the cabinets so that the tiles can go under there, get replaced too. And that costs even more money to get done. And you see how they keep linking one thing to the next, and
Right.
and they get you a ton more money. But they're licensed to do that.
Hmm.
Okay.
It may be money.
Okay, it's not called a private adjuster. I'm sorry, I got the name wrong. It's called a public adjuster. The ones that you would hire are called public adjusters. Okay. And then also for damage or damage loss, for tax deduction purposes, you get appraisals. Or for feasibility studies that maybe municipalities or maybe I don't know, they're trying to see what we could do for the local economy. I don't know. There could be so many reasons that they do that for feasibility studies for all kinds of topics. But these are all reasons where we would get an appraisal done on a property. So it's not just to figure out for the purposes of obtaining financing to buy a house. Okay. We get back to the slide where we were before. All right. So they'd have to decide which approach to value that they're going to use to construct that building. Or they want to put it exactly the way that it was before, that's reproduction, or if they just want to replace it with something that's similar that serves the same purpose. If any of you guys have a high-end kitchen in your home, you know, beautiful custom cabinetry, you know, you got the 42-inch cherry cabinets with the nice woodwork and the glass inlays. You have expensive appliances, you know, like those Viking appliances in your kitchen that could run $20,000, $30,000. Remember that whole big thing about Nancy Pelosi, how she's telling you, oh, enjoy your time at your lockdown in your home. And she's eating ice cream out of her freezer, showing you all the expensive ice creams, like the, you know, $10 a pint ice creams that she has in her $30,000 freezer, Viking freezer. That was actually a Viking unit there. That's about $30,000 unit that she was showing you. Her freezer. These people are not living in the same plane as most of us. So if you have a kitchen that has custom stuff like that, custom countertops, sinks, and all that, and you have a fire in your kitchen, the insurance company, are they going to pay you the money so that you could replace everything with exactly how you had it before? Or are they going to give you money just to put in a new cabinet off the shelf in Home Depot, something with a vinyl cover, you know, the vinyl covered wood, pressed wood, and the same for the cabinets? Or are they going to replace it with those custom cabinetries and Viking appliances? Or are they just going to replace it with an off the shelf white product? You know, that's called replacement approach. And if you have a house that has expensive things or custom things like a kitchen like that, you should have a reproduction policy. If you're not sure what kind of policy you have, check with your insurance company, because if you do have a fire or something, are they going to replace it with something that was exactly the same? Or are they going to replace it with something else that'll serve the same function that's not necessarily an exact replacement? Okay, so that's replacement or reproduction. Which one would be the exact?
Reproduction.
Reproduction, correct. And the way I get people to remember that is a little bit of my inappropriate humor. Please bear with me. I don't mean to offend nobody. But ladies, why do you have children? To make exact little duplicate copies of yourselves, little mini me's. You know? It shares the same word, reproduction, right? Okay. I'm using humor. I'm not trying to offend nobody, okay? Now, you don't need to have a baby in order to have a child. You could always adopt, and it serves the same purpose, right? You'll have a child that you'll love. They'll grow up as part of your family, but they won't be exact little mini me duplicate copies of yourself. I'm not saying that they're inferior or anything. I'm just saying it's, you know, I don't mean to offend anybody by using this kind of an example. I'm just trying to figure out another way that you guys can remember the difference here between reproduction and replacement. Replacement is something that's not going to be an exact mini me duplicate. Okay. If that doesn't work for you, use some other approach to remember replacement and reproduction, because you will get a question on that on exam. Then they estimate the accrued depreciation of the improvement, not the land. Why? Because land does not depreciate. So they have to separate the value of the land from the value of the improvement. And why does what is depreciation? It's a loss of value due to any cause or any condition. Let me see if I have that on a slide over here coming up. Okay, here's the difference between reproduction cost and replacement cost. I have that on the slide here. If you guys want to see mine, but you also have it in the book. It's pretty much the same thing here. These are the different things for depreciation. So depreciation is a loss of value due to any cause or condition to the improvement. And you need to remember, as a general rule, land does not depreciate. So this stuff is on page 281 over here. I want you to highlight depreciation refers to a loss of value due to any cause or any condition that adversely affects the value of an improvement to the real property. And then underline, as a general rule, land does not depreciate. Now, there are extreme circumstances. Maybe the land got contaminated or something happened like that, or it became a flood zone, or there was a sinkhole. You know, extreme situations like that, land could depreciate. But otherwise, as a general rule, land does not depreciate. But you got to separate the value of the land from the improvement, because the improvement can depreciate, right? And a good example of that is physical deterioration, right? The wood in that structure just gets old over time. It falls apart. It could get eaten up by termites and wood destroying insects, and it could be damaged, right? Can this be fixed? Can this be cured? Yes, it can. Can be cured, right? So that's physical deterioration. We don't need to highlight that. We know what physical deterioration means. But these two other types of depreciation, we need to learn for exams. Now, start by not reading the definition. I want you guys just to look at the words. Functional obsolescence. If something's functional, what does that mean?
It works.
It works. If it's obsolete, what does that mean?
It's not working anymore.
No, obsolete does not mean it doesn't work. It means it's outdated.
Yeah,
Not relevant.
outdated, irrelevant.
Yeah. So if something is functional, but it's obsolete, like your kitchen, there's nothing wrong with my kitchen. Sure, it looks like it's straight out of a Leave It to Beaver 1950s, right? But it's in perfect shape. Look at that stove. It works. It fires up first try, you know? It's functional, but it's outdated. So any buyers are going to consider those features outdated. Now, here's another example of functional obsolescence. All right, you guys ready for this? Let me see if this would be functionally obsolete for you in today's environment. A 5-bedroom, 1-bathroom house.
Okay, it's still, to me, it's like just a lot of money to put into for just $100. You can go ahead and
Hold
take.
on. There we go. Guys having conversations, got to mute yourselves. All right. So if something is, I thought somebody was asking me a question there. Look, if something is a 5-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, does that suffer from functional obsolescence?
Is it separate?
I think you need another.
Yes.
Look, these days people have a 2-bedroom condo. They want a 2.5 baths.
Yes.
Right.
5-bedroom, 1-bathroom house
No.
may have been good in the days when you were just glad that you had indoor plumbing.
Right.
But by today's standards,
It's absolute.
it's functionally obsolete. That house is functionally obsolete. But can it be cured?
Yes.
Sure, you add another bath.
Yeah.
All right. But I just want to give you the understanding of functional obsolescence. You don't need to, I don't need to dictate and teach you a definition for it. You could just, these are common words that you should be able to understand. And then you could figure out the definition of them just by analyzing the words. So when it comes test time, you don't need to have studied the definition. You just observe the words. If something's functional, it works. If it's obsolete, it's outdated. It's working, but it's outdated. Look, that 5-bedroom, 1-bathroom house example I gave you, that 1 bathroom could have just been updated and it's super modern. but it's still a 5-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. And you guys were just saying it needs another bath. Otherwise, people are waiting in line, right? Now, external obsolescence, if it's external to the property, what does that mean? It's not on the property. We're not talking about something outside the house. We're talking about outside the property, okay?
Oh, like,
So something not on the subject property that makes it obsolete. Now, external obsolescence also goes by the names economic or locational obsolescence. All right. So items not on the subject property, external to the site, that have effect on the property's value or desirability. Like you bought a house next door to that cute little park, but now you can't use that cute little park and take your kids there because you found out it's contaminated with PCBs. Is that going to affect the value and desirability of your home?
mhm.
Yes. Or how about this? A brand new car dealership, a high-end Mercedes-Benz dealership downwind from a pig farm.
Hmm?
Wait, well, it converted, you're saying, to pig?
Yeah, no. You have a brand new Mercedes dealership.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, here, let me show you the example in a little bit of a drawing, perhaps. All right, a brand new Mercedes-Benz dealership. Oh yeah, you want that new car smell, right? Here's that Mercedes-Benz dealership, right? And over here is where you got the pig farm, where you got the little pigs there on the ground, right? That's my drawing for a pig. It's got a little scrolly tail. Okay, so you don't want that smell getting carried by the wind in this direction. That's not the kind of leather that you plan on smelling at a Mercedes-Benz dealer, is it?
Yeah.
No. So at this Benz dealership, you know, you don't want to smell a horse farm, pig farm. You don't want to have that smell coming over. You want people to be smelling that new car smell, not that. So this property, where the Mercedes-Benz dealership is, do they have any control over that?
No.
No. So that property is suffering
Not
from
curable.
locational obsolescence because of its location to the pig farm. It's external obsolescence, something not on the subject property, based
Okay.
on its location, is
Okay.
negatively affecting them. Or economic obsolescence. Can the local economy tanking affect the value of your property? The economy is not on your property, but
It's outside.
it's something in the area. It's an outside factor that affects the desirability or value of your property.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why they also refer to external obsolescence as economic or locational obsolescence. This type of obsolescence, however, is almost always incurable because you have no control over what's going on other people's properties or in the area. Okay, so which type of obsolescence is almost always incurable?
External.
External.
Oh, incurable.
All right, so now you know that for exams.
Okay.
Mhm.
Functional and external, you'll get on exams. You need to know what they are, and you need to know which one is not curable, usually.
Terrible.
External.
Okay.
All right, so next to number 2, we're going to highlight the first sentence of functional obsolescence. This refers to physical or design features that are no longer considered desirable by property buyers. And then beneath it, just highlight the word curable.
What page are we on?
281. Under depreciation, we highlighted the first, under depreciation, we highlighted that refers to a loss of value due to any cause or condition that affects the value of an improvement to real property. And then we underlined, as a general rule, land does not depreciate. And then under number 2, we highlighted the first sentence, we highlighted functional obsolescence in that first sentence, and then the word curable after it, because it is curable. And then number 3, we're going to highlight the first 2 lines, external obsolescence Also known as economic or locational obsolescence, is caused by factors not on the subject property, so it is almost always incurable. All right, so then they estimate the accrued depreciation for the improvement, and we just went over the different types of depreciation that could occur. And then they deduct the accrued depreciation from the estimated cost of the building, and then they add back in that estimated value of the land as the final step to come up with the total value of the property using the appraisal by summation, also known as the cost approach, to value these special purpose, unique, one of a kind, or public buildings. Okay. Now go to page 282. We're going to go over the income approach to values. Let's highlight the first sentence, that the income approach is also known as the capitalization approach to value, and it's based on the present worth of the future rights that that property has to income. And through this bulleted list, they give you a way to calculate that. But we're going to go down to the fourth bullet point here. The second sentence. We're going to highlight, this is done by estimating the rate of return that an investor demands for an investment of capital. Then in the next sentence, we're going to highlight the rate of return is called the capitalization or cap rate. So what is a cap rate? It's a measurement of the rate of return of an investor's money on how quickly they could recoup it. So the income approach is based on the present worth of future rights to income, used for valuation of property that generates income, like apartment buildings, office buildings, shopping centers, multifamily properties. Any property that generates income could use the income approach to value, using two approaches, either cap rates or GRM. We're learning about the cap approach right now, the capitalization approach.
What was the second line that you said to highlight? Where is that?
1, 2, 3, fourth bullet point. Second sentence in the second line, we're just going to highlight, estimate the rate of, this is done in the second sentence on the fourth bullet point. We're highlighting, this is done by estimating the rate of return that an investor demands for the investment of capital.
Okay.
Then the next sentence after that, we're going to highlight, this rate of return is called the capitalization or cap rate.
Okay, thank you.
Now they go on to tell you this is done by you got to estimate the income. You take the income of the property. So this is the capitalization rate. Let's just look at this slide. This is how it's done. Cap rate or capitalization rate is a measurement that determines the rate of return of an investor's money. You use something that they call the T formula to calculate. I have it written out on the coming slide, the formula. I'll show it to you in a moment. And you have to have any two of the following three figures in order to figure out the cap rate. The annual NOI, which stands for net operating income, the value of the property itself, or the cap rate, which is the measurement of the rate of return of the investment. So how do you calculate the NOI, the net annual income? Well, you got to take the GOI, which is short for gross operating income. It's the income, the gross income of the property before expenses. Then you got to figure out the expenses, the GOE, gross operating expenses. You subtract the expenses from the income to get the net. So net operating income, remember, it has to be annual. It's based on annual, the yearly net income. So you take the GOI, subtract the GOE to get the NOI. What is GOI? The income. You subtract the expenses from the income, you're left with the net. That's your spendable money, right? It's like on your paychecks. You wish you got paid the gross. Instead, your employer always took out deductions and then they gave you the net. Right? You guys understand that? Gross operating income, subtract the expenses, you get the net. All right. And it's important to remember, you always has to figure out the annual figure. So we're going to do a couple of math problems on this, but first I want to go through all the vocabulary in this chapter before we actually do math. And then the other approach is using the gross rent multiplier. Okay. Now, which approach to value would you use to value? Which approach to value is most often used by real estate agents?
CMA.
CMA.
The comparative market analysis, correct. Which approach to value is used to determine the value of any property that generates income?
Cost of, oh, income approach.
Income approach. Which approach to value would you use to value a library?
Cost approach.
What about a church?
Cost approach.
What about a high-end, very expensive custom home?
CMA.
Income.
Cost
Cost
approach.
approach.
Cost approach, yeah.
Oh, cost.
If it's very expensive custom, meaning there's no other home like it, you would use the cost approach because there is no other home to compare it to, right? Otherwise, if I just said an expensive home, it's CMA, cost of the comparative approach. All right, so let's back it up just a bit here. On page 283, under gross rent or income multipliers, I want you to highlight the third line. Gross rent multiplier, GRM, relates the sales price of a property to its rental income. I have a definition here that shows by comparing two or more similar income generating properties. Now, using a GRM, a multiplier, gross rent multiplier, a multiplier is an insignificant number in itself. It's just a number that's, you figure out the number for a property and then you use that number to compare it to another property. You could figure out the multiplier for a 4-unit building to compare it to another 4-unit building, but you can't compare a 4-unit to a 5-unit or a 3-unit to a 4-unit. You got to compare similar properties using a multiplier to figure out its value. I know it doesn't make sense what I'm saying right now. It will once we start doing the math. So let me just first explain. So you need to have, just like with the cap rates, you need to have any two of the three following items, but those items are different. And you're using a different formula. It's called the reverse T formula. You got to have the gross monthly income, not the net annual, but the gross monthly income, the value of its property itself, or the multiplier to find whichever missing component you're trying to figure out. So you have to have two of any three of these items. You could use this reverse T formula to figure out the missing component. If you're trying to figure out the value of the property, you need the gross monthly income and the GRM. All right. If you're trying to figure out the GRM for a property, you need to know its gross monthly income and the value of it. And then you could use that GRM to compare it to another property. And then there's something called a GIM. I'm not really going to teach you about this because you don't need to know it. Nobody ever really uses it. And you're not going to get it on exam either. You may get a question at the end of this chapter, but it's probably the last time you'll ever see it. GIM stands for gross income multiplier. It's basically using the gross rent multiplier plus any additional revenue from sources like sales concessions on commercial properties. That income that's not coming from the real estate itself, but maybe from like a concession stand there, right? You add that onto the rent. All right, so reconciliation is when you apply more than one of the three approaches to value to the same property. And you're going to do this to figure out which would be the best approach to use at the end. What are the three approaches? We got it on screen in front of you. Sales comparison approach, cost approach, and the income approach. If you go to page 284, we're going to highlight the word reconciliation and the first line. If more than one of the three approaches to value are applied to the same property. Now, which approach would you end up using at the end of the day? The most valuable approach. So let me ask you a question. Which approach to value would you use to value a one-family house, your typical one-family house?
CMA.
A CMA.
Yeah.
Which approach to value would you use to value a strip mall?
Income approach.
Income approach. Which approach to value would you use to value a church?
Cost approach.
Cost approach. Which approach to value would you use to value a four-family building, four-family house?
Income.
Income.
No, that's residential. Comparative.
Why not both?
I think it's
Mm,
income.
Why not both?
right.
The property generates income, so you could use the income approach on it,
Mhm.
but you could also find other four-family buildings in the area that have sold, I'm sure. So you could probably also use the sales comparison approach.
Right.
So what is it called when you do both approaches to determine which approach at the end of the day is the one that you should use?
Dual.
It's called reconciliation.
Oh, okay.
So I just gave you an example of reconciliation. Use two approaches. When you apply more than one of the three approaches to value to the same property, it's called reconciliation. And then which approach would you use at the end? The most profitable one, or most valuable approach. All right, so here are the two formulas that we were talking about for calculating cap rates and GRM, gross rent multipliers. We're not going to get to the math just yet, but I want you to write these formulas in your book. Go back to page 282. And in the margin on the left-hand side of the page there, did they show you how to do this on the bottom of the page? But I have a little bit different approach the way I write it and the way I create this T formula. So I want you to write in the margin to the left of where you highlighted the cap rate stuff. I want you to write, use T formula to calculate. So you're going to use the T formula to calculate cap rates. You can also use it to figure out commissions and a lot of things. I'm going to show you how to do that math, but how you could use this formula. So just write in the margin, use T formula, put the T in quotes like that, use T formula to calculate. And then I want you to draw this T formula. You draw the T, with these symbols. What's this symbol right here? The line with the two dots.
Look like division.
Yeah, that's the division symbol. And then the X is multiplication, right? So you're going to divide down or multiply across. You could put your finger over any one of those items, okay? And to figure out the missing item, let's see, if you wanted to figure out what the cap rate is on a property, you would need to have the annual NOI up top of the T formula, and the large number goes on the bottom, which would be the property value when figuring cap rates. So to use the T formula, the small number always goes up top, the large number on one side, and the rate or cap rate or percentage goes on the other side. So when figuring out cap rates, the small number is the annual net income, and the large number would be the property value. But remember, I told you could use this T formula for figuring out commission problems too. So I wrote small number, annual NOI, large number, property value, and percentage or cap rate goes over here. So just draw this in the margin of your page there. This is the T formula. And then above it or below it, I want you to write TGIF. It stands for the top number goes in the calculator first. So whatever number's on top of this T formula, you're going to be dividing it by either this one or this one to figure out the other missing component. So which number do you plug in the calculator first? Well, top number goes in first. TGIF, top number goes in first. All right. So you divide down and multiply across, but remember TGIF, the top number goes in the calculator first, not the bottom number. Just trying to teach you this formula. It makes the math so much easier. And let me know when you guys are done writing all that down here in your book. Use T formula to calculate TGIF. Top number goes in first. Divide down, multiply across. Draw a T with the division symbol on both sides and an X in the center there. Small number, annual NOI on the top. Large number, property value on one side. Percentage or cap rate on the other. Let me know when you guys are done writing that in so that we could then go to the next T formula I could give you, and tell you where to write that. And well, I'll tell you right now, when you're done writing that, some people will be finished before others. On the next page, next to gross rent multiplier, somewhere above it, there's a big white space on the right side of the page. Use reverse T formula. Only works on GRM problems. And it works the same way though. TGIF, top number goes in the calculator first. You divide down, multiply across. The large number would be the property value, goes up top. So it's kind of the opposite of the T formula. It's the reverse. That's why I call it the reverse T formula. You're going to put the large number up top and the small number on the bottom, but the small number this time is going to be the gross monthly income instead of the annual net. And on the other side is not a percentage, it's going to be the GRM, which is a multiplier, not a percentage rate. So write both of those in, write the T formula on page 282 and then page 283 above GRM, you're going to write the reverse T formula there. And as everybody finishes, let me know when you're done writing all that stuff in.
Victor,
Yes.
this is a lot, even with the math and the calculations. Like, how long you think we should study for before we attempt to sit any exam? Like a month or two or
No.
no?
The longer you wait, you forget the stuff. Just keep cramming and cramming. Review everything for maybe a couple of days or a week, however long until you feel like you're, unless you've been studying the whole time along, you know, and then just cram it and take it.
Okay.
Remember, you get 2 shots at taking it, and then before you have to pay $20 again, you know.
And the same approach before this stage, right? Cram it and then take it.
Yeah, while it's fresh in your head, schedule the date, and now you're forced to take it at a certain date. With the school exam, it's on demand. You could take it whenever you want after I enter you in the system, after I enter you in the exam system.
How many tries you have at the state exam? Just one?
Unlimited, but you have to pay. You have to pay for each attempt.
Do you have to wait a certain time before you try again?
24 hours before you could register to take it again.
Oh, okay.
And do you have to pay 160 each time you attempt it?
No. It's $45 for the state.
40.
It's a 160 to get your license for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Victor,
Yes.
when you're taking the school exam or the state exam, is it gonna, so you're telling me I'm wasting my time doing all the review questions?
All right. No. Review questions at the end of the chapters, and the practice exams, the chapter 23 and 24 are full sample exams. The answers are in the back of the book on page 5, starting at page 589 in the back of the book. You got all the key answer keys for all the quizzes, key terms, and the exams that are in the book. Okay, they're on page 589. Now, are they worded like the questions on the school and state exam? No. Are they is it the same content? Yes. If you know the content, doesn't matter how they word it, you'll figure it out.
Okay, because end of the
State
book.
exam's a little bit more difficult because they're not as direct. They're a little more scenario-based questions. They want to see if you know how to apply the information in a real world scenario. Now, in the shared Google Drive that you guys are seeing right now in front of you, okay, this is the link in that email that I sent you that takes you to the shared Google Drive. This is the shared Google Drive where you will be. In the,
I don't have that.
send me an email, not a text message. Send me an email and I'll reply to it with the links again.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the chapter quizzes, you go here to this folder, chapter quizzes for students to practice on their own time. Okay, let's see.
Excuse me, what is your wait 1 second. What's your email address?
He said you should test him.
Victor@careerpathacademy.com.
Victor at- Okay, thank you.
And also just include your, if it's not in your email itself, include your name and what class you're in. So this way I can make sure it's not somebody who's not one of my students that I'm sending it to. Okay. All right. So let's see. And in here, look, when you go into this, here's for the 14th edition book, the unit quiz answer key. So even though you may open one of these up and they give you questions about the chapter, like look, this is for the 14th version book, but look, I also have them from the 13th version book too.
Oh, okay.
You know, so there's tons of them here for you. And look, here, let's look at unit 16. That's chapter 16, what we're on right now. You open it up, it gives you some quizzes. Look, quiz questions here, right? There's no answers here. It's just the quizzes. Is that what you were talking about? That there was no-
Yeah.
Okay, but if you open up the unit 14th edition unit quiz answer key, it'll have the answers to everything there. You see this? So for that chapter 16 one, you just go to unit 16. Where is it? 13. Where is it? Come on, Grammarly. You pop up on my screen. It's in here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Unit 16. And you got all the answers to all the questions.
These questions are more what we should expect on the state exam. These questions.
State exam is gonna, their questions are gonna be more long-winded.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
You know, they like to give you a paragraph long question. You know, I mean, they're gonna have some short questions that are direct, but but a lot of their questions tend to be a little more long-winded. So you got to break down the questions into smaller editable chunks, reading them to yourself, translate it in your head before you ever look at the answer options, and figure out, ask yourself a question about the question. What is this question asking of me? You know, and then you'll better understand what the question's asking of you. Then try to formulate an answer in your head before you ever look at the answers. And then when you do look at the answers, don't look for the right answer. Do process of elimination, discarding the ones you know are not right. All right?
I just sent the email.
All right, then I'll take care of that. Did everybody write down these cap rates? Has everybody got these, the T formula and reverse T formula written?
Let me
Yes,
see,
I
let
do.
me-
Everybody got that down? Is you all can see it on screen still, right?
Yes.
All right. So now that you guys all got that, I'm gonna put up the poll and we're gonna take the lunch break. Let me just first send that email to Lisa.
And Professor, on the back of the book, there's like two different, review questions, like cumulative review quizzes and practice.
No. At the chapter 23 and chapter 24, those are full sample exams. The cumulative, those are sample exams. Yeah.
So, and from these, you say it can be like similar stuff on the state exam, right?
Well, it's all the same content. The quizzes at the end of every chapter, those cumulative exams at the end of the book, they're all the same content. It's just how they ask the questions, how they phrase it, what's going to be different.
Okay. And the test that is through your side, like $20, you're saying for 2 trials. At the end, if he failed, what will you at the end of that?
You get two tries. If you fail the second time, you go online and you don't have to register again for the exam with me. Just go pay the $20 again and then call me to remove the security lock, because they put a lock on your account. It's a security feature.
Okay.
And then I have to log into their website, remove the lock on your account, and then you'll be open to take the exam 2 more times.
Okay, but if you failed the first time, at the end of that, do they tell you which one did you got wrong?
Yeah.
Do they tell you the correct answer?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Actually, you know what? I got to take a look at it. I did have it like that before. I got to take a look. I'm not sure if I have it like that. I'm not sure if I have it like that anymore. I think I may have changed it, but I did have it where it'll show you all of the questions that you got wrong.
Yeah, it would be really helpful if we know what we got wrong and if it tells us the correct answer.
Yeah, I know,
So
but nobody tells you that. Nobody ever does.
Nobody tells you that. Okay.
I'm sorry, Victor, did you do the poll?
But I was doing that for a while. I'm not sure if I still have it or if I changed it in our software, because I didn't want anybody, just failing the whole exam so they could get the whole exam there, and then take it again and then have the answers.
Is it gonna be the same questions? If you fail it the first time?
Actually, no. That's
what I'm thinking.
I have a database. Look, 2 of you can be sitting next to each other with computers next to each other taking the exam, and your exams will be different. Even if you get the same questions on your exams, they're going to be given in a different order.
Well, you guys are just trying to make this harder and harder for us. Jeez.
I just don't want you to cheat. You guys can literally sit in the same room, take the same exam together, but you'll be given a different exam. Even if it's all the same exact questions, they'll be given in random order every time you take it. So it's not like you could take the exam, write down all the questions and everything and the answers, and then be able to go in there again and do it, because it's all going to be scrambled up. And remember, the exam is timed. It'll automatically end after 4 hours.
I hope it's not gonna take me 4 hours to do.
If it takes you 4 hours, you need to study.
Yeah, for real.
You know, look, most of my students finish this exam within 45 minutes to an hour and a half. If you really didn't study, or you have a strong language problem where you barely understand English, 2.5 hours max. Even for people with strong language barriers, I've had them finish in 2.5 hours max. Okay, anything more than that, you really need to study. All right, so anyway, it's 1:30. Be back at 1:30 for lunch.
Okay, Victor, see you then.
All right, thank you, Victor.
You're welcome.
In the email.
So cap rates, gross rent multipliers, we're going to be doing the math on these after we do all the vocabulary. So let's finish going over the terms and definitions and vocab in this chapter. Oh, look at that. It already goes to math right away. And here's also formulas on how to calculate the cost approach to value. So we went over the steps that an appraiser does, and this is actually how to figure out the math. I wrote it down in a couple of steps to break it down. It's not going to make a whole lot of sense to you if I were just to read this and show this to you right now. You know, first you determine which method that the appraiser is going to use, whether it's straight line or compound method. And I have a little explanation here of what the straight line method is and what the compound method is. And then you got to figure out, are we calculating appreciation or depreciation? If it's appreciated, it's adding to 100% of the value. If it's depreciating, it's subtracting from 100%. And then you determine, are we trying to figure out the value of the property in the past, or are we trying to calculate a current or future value? If you're determining a value in past, so in relation to time, you're going to divide. If you're figuring out a current or future value, you multiply. When we actually go over the math, it'll make more sense. And I have problems here showing you how to work that out. So let's just temporarily skip over that as we go to do the, like I said, the vocabulary and such. All right, so on page 285, at the bottom of the page, next to last bullet point, I want you guys to highlight Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, USPAP, USPAP.
What page again?
285.
Thank you.
That's something here about this. Okay. USPAP, USPAP. Let me search the slideshow because I could have sworn I had something here in it. Just, I don't know if the slide's out of order or what. Yes, PAP. Oh, here it is. It's in order. So, page 285, the bottom of the page, you're going to highlight USPAP, USPAP. It stands for Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And then I want you to turn the page 288. I'm just going to have you highlight these things and then I'll explain what it is. Then turn to page 288. And under the profession of appraising, I want you to highlight in the third paragraph on the second line, MAI, member of the Appraisal Institute. MAI, member of the Appraisal Institute. Everybody got that? Everybody got that?
Yes.
All right. So what is MAI and USPAP? What is this stuff? Well, when you guys get your real estate licenses, you're going to have to join NAR, National Association of Realtors, right? What NAR is to us, MAI is to appraisers. They become members of the Appraisal Institute. Now, when you guys become members of NAR, National Association of Realtors, we have to take the Code of Ethics training class, the Realtors Code of Ethics training class. And what the Realtors Code of Ethics class is to us, USPAP is to appraisers. The Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, which is a 15-hour course appraisers are required to complete on a yearly basis, I believe. So that's what that is. Now, as far as state exam goes, I'm not sure how they'll word this on exam, but you will get one or the other, possibly both, on exam. If they ask you a question about MAI or USPAP, as long as you know it has something to do with appraisers, you'll get the question right. I don't know how they're going to ask it, but I just explained to you what it is. MAI, you're a member of the Appraisal Institute. USPAP is their equivalent to our Code of Ethics. MAI is their equivalent to our NAR. Make sense? All right. I hope it made sense since I'm getting no answers, but okay. All right. Now, oh my God. All right, so just to recap, appraisals are given by appraisers. Appraising is a profession, requires licensing. Appraisers charge a fee for appraisals. And there's several different types of appraisal licenses we'll go over. We as real estate agents, we do CMAs or BPOs when helping people with valuing properties. When we help individuals value homeowners, we do a CMA. When we're doing it for banks, we do a BPO. Either way, neither of them should ever be called an appraisal because we're not licensed appraisers, so we can't make appraisals. The appraisal statement that appraisers do is called the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. What do we call the appraisal on a VA property, on a VA loan?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
What do you call a appraisal for a VA loan, the Veterans Administration loan? What do we call the appraisal statement on those?
You're referring to a CMA or no?
Appraisal.
Appraisal.
What do you call the appraisal on a VA loan? Remember, it's named after, or I told you to try to remember the car.
Oh,
Oh, the CRV.
See, I told you it works when it's with the car stuff.
CRV.
I don't know why, but it works. Okay. Honda CRV, right? So it's
Right.
called a certificate of reasonable value if the appraisal is done on a loan, on a VA loan. Otherwise, it's referred to as the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. All right, here are the 4 license types. Now, you will get a question about them, so you need to understand them, and I'll explain what you need to know. Well, in order to become an appraiser, the first step is you need to become an apprentice trainee. You have to take a 90-hour class in just appraisal topics and then pass a state exam. And then you become an apprentice trainee who cannot do appraisals. You're basically working under a licensed residential, a certified residential, or a general appraiser. You're basically a gopher for the next year. Until you could go back, take another 150-hour class and pass another exam after you had 2,000 hours of experience doing appraisals in not less than 1 year's time. And then you could go back and you could become a licensed residential appraiser who still cannot do appraisals on their own. They have to work under either a certified residential or a certified general appraiser. All right, so what, in order to become a certified residential appraiser, well, first of all, you can only appraise residential properties under $1 million, unless you're under the supervision of a general appraiser. That's the only time you could appraise commercial properties. So you could appraise commercial properties, but only under the supervision of a certified general appraiser. See, a certified residential appraiser can work on their own. They don't have to work under another appraiser. But if they don't work under a certified general appraiser, they cannot appraise commercial property. If they are under a certified general appraiser, they can. They need another 200 additional hours of class and a additional 2,500 hours of experience in not less than 2 years, and have an associate's degree, or they could substitute an associate's degree, 21 semester hours credits in certain topics. You think those topics should have something to do with appraising or valuing properties or math or something along those lines?
Mm-hmm.
That would only make sense, right? After all, some politician made this law after the mortgage meltdown, saying, after they blamed everybody, the mortgage reps, the real estate agents, the attorneys, now let's blame the appraisers, even though they had their appraisals were based on supportable evidence. So politicians started blaming appraisers, and they said, we need a more stringent standard here to make sure that this does not happen again, as if it was the appraiser's fault. So let's see the more stringent education requirement that they put in place. They need to take classes. You need to have a degree. An associate's degree in English, economics, math, business, or law. I don't know how that's going to make you a better appraiser, but okay. I understand the math part, and maybe even the economics. All right. Now, both, if you want to become a certified general appraiser, you can appraise any kind of property, residential properties over $1 million or commercial property. And this is probably going to be the answer that you get, that you're going to need on a state exam. But I'll tell you 2 ways that they could ask questions. There's no monetary caps on the values of the properties they can appraise. They have to have a bachelor's degree, or they could substitute a bachelor's degree with 30 semester credits in certain topics. Those topics being the courses mentioned that I just mentioned, or 2 elective courses in accounting, geography, AG economics, business management, or real estate. All right.
We need to know this for the exam?
The education requirement, no.
Oh.
But I'll tell you what you need to know for the exam in a moment. in addition to another 300 hours of approved classes beyond what was required to get their become a certified residential appraiser, and have 3,000 hours of experience in not with at least half of that time appraising commercial properties, non-residential properties, in a period of not less than 2.5 years. So a lot of education and a lot of time to become a certified general appraiser, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize they had to go through so much just to become certified.
Yep. Yeah. You start off here. Remember, you guys are getting your real estate licenses, and you're taking a 75-hour class. They got to take a 90-hour class just to become an apprentice trainee. You basically are a glorified gopher, a gopher with a license for other appraisals. They have you doing all the grunt work, running the comps and doing all that stuff, but it's good work to get your practice in, you know, but you don't get paid a whole lot for that. So, but you got to put your time in, you know, and then you could graduate to a licensed appraiser who still can't work on your own. You got to work under one of the certified ones, and you got to take another 150 hours of classes, pass another exam, have at least 2,000 hours of experience as an apprentice trainee, and not less than a year in order to become a certified, in order to become a licensed residential appraiser. Okay, so what kind of appraiser's license is required to do an appraisal?
Like any type of appraisal or just residential or?
Yeah.
any type?
Certified residential.
Certified resident.
What, let me repeat, what kind of license is required to do an appraisal?
I think it's certified general.
Certified residential appraiser.
Appraiser.
No, wait.
Any of them. You need an appraiser's license, and they're all considered appraiser licenses.
Oh, that was a
Okay,
little
so
trick
where
question.
that at?
You got me on that one because that's actually a very easy one. I don't know why I didn't get it.
That's the way state exam will, they have a question. Remember, they got a database full of questions. That's one of the questions that they have on this. That one is tricky, right?
It is tricky, but it's easy.
Because
at the
you're
same time.
thinking, I just went over 4 appraiser type licenses. Now you're trying to focus in on them. Come on, step back a little bit from it. Right?
Wait, are you certain that that's a question?
Oh, yeah.
All right, repeat that again.
I don't know if you're going to get that question because they got a database of thousands of questions, and your exam is going to be generated on the fly based on the questions in their database.
Oh, boy.
But I know that that's a question that's that comes out often. What kind of license is required to do an appraisal? An appraiser.
The appraisal license.
We as real estate agents can't do appraisals because
We're not licensed. for that.
appraising is a profession that requires licensure, and only a licensed appraiser or one of these appraiser type licenses is required to do that, right? All right.
For being appraisal license.
Yep.
basically.
Any of these appraiser licenses, including the apprentice trainee, right?
Oh, okay, even including that.
Mhm. Now, they could ask the question in another way. What kind of appraiser's license is required to appraise a residential property that's valued at $1.5 million?
Certified general appraiser.
Certified general appraiser. What kind of appraiser's license is required to appraise a property that is combination residential, where 3/4 of the building is residential and 1/4 of it has storefronts beneath it?
Certified residential appraiser.
Both of
That will be general.
Certified general.
Certified general appraiser.
Yeah.
Remember, there's commercial involved there.
Uh-huh.
But hold on one
But,
second. Hold on
yeah,
one
because
second.
it says,
Hold on one second. If the majority of the building, though, is residential, a certified residential appraiser can do it too.
Mm.
I have a question.
I screwed up in the way I asked that question. So keep that in mind. As long as less than 50% of the building is commercial, a certified residential appraiser can do it.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. What was your question?
Under the certified residential appraiser, like it says can appraise commercial property, but only under the supervision.
Uh-huh. So if
So-
a certified residential appraiser is working under a certified general appraiser. But you know, the answer options I give you, I didn't tell you that any of them were working under a certified general appraiser.
Mm,
So don't look out for that, you know,
yes, okay.
unless they specifically say so, and I doubt they will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
So what should
basically,
we highlight then? I wonder.
basically your answers are mostly going to be for any question they ask you. It's either going to be an appraiser's license or certified general appraiser. You
Yeah.
probably don't really need to know any of the other ones.
Okay.
So we don't really need to memorize what the certified residential appraiser is, just the general appraiser.
Yeah, because remember the word general. What do you
Cover
call it?
everything.
We've used it so many times in this class, the word general, and every time we used it, I said, general is a wider scope. It covers more.
Right.
What kind of real estate agent can do? Most agents work as special agents. What kind of agent can legally bind their clients to a contract? A general agent. A general agent can do more. They can legally bind their clients to a contract, whereas a special agent cannot. What type of property lien covers all property that you own? A general lien.
General.
Yeah.
It's a wider scope. And what kind of appraiser's license covers all kinds of property? Has a wider scope.
General.
The general. So there you go. The generals, remember that when talking in general, you should do this with your hands. When talking in general, general is a wider scope. Specific is narrow, right? But so certified general appraiser can appraise any property. Residential is limited to residential properties under $1 million. They cannot appraise commercial property. Commercial property is anything that's classified that more than 50% of that property, 50% or more of that property is used for commercial purposes. All right. So you'll get a question about that, or you'll get a you'll get a question about MAI and USPAP. Okay. So let's highlight on the bottom of page 288. The next to last paragraph. Both licensed and certified residential appraisers must pass an examination and may conduct appraisals of no more than 1 million. $. And then,
Could you repeat the question again?
no, I'm telling you to highlight something. It wasn't a question. The next to last paragraph on page 288, you're going to highlight both licensed and certified residential appraisers must pass an exam and may conduct appraisals of no more than $1 million.
Okay.
And then at the very bottom of the page, the last word, you see it says unlike.
Yeah.
Highlight, unlike residential appraisers, certified general appraisers have no monetary cap on the properties they can appraise.
Right.
And then right at the end of that line, and can appraise commercial property.
Right, what?
And can appraise commercial property.
Okay.
Victor, where is that line? I can't see it. I don't see it.
On page 288, the very last word on the page, the last word on the last line. Unlike, and then it carries over to the next page, 289, at the top of the page. Residential.
okay.
So
Okay.
unlike residential appraisers, certified general appraisers have no monetary cap on the properties they can appraise. And then you're going to write in there, and can appraise commercial property.
All right, thank you.
And then underneath that, you're going to highlight in every case, for all the license types, 15-hour national USPAP course, which stands for Uniform Standard Professional Appraisal Practice, is required. Okay. And if you guys want more information, you're interested about becoming appraisers, you could go to njconsumeraffairs.gov/REA. New Jersey requirements: appraisals performed as part of federally related transactions. They must comply with state standards, be licensed to do appraisals. We as real estate agents, we help people value properties by doing a comparative market analysis, CMA. This is by us to help sellers and buyers, or using the sales comparison approach to value, or we do a BPO for lenders. That's a broker's price opinion. But either way, neither one of them can ever be called an appraisal. So on the bottom of either a CMA or a BPO, we must have in the report stating it is not an appraisal and should not be considered the equivalent of one. All right, we're going to do the key terms to review, and then we're going to go back and we're going to do some math problems for this chapter. Okay, let's see, here's the math problem starting. All right, so let's do the key terms to review for chapter 16. Analysis of income, including rental and other factors.
Analysis of value of property.
Including the rental and other factors. In other words, income from other sources too.
That's gross income multiplier.
It is, 10 is A. Analysis of rental income used roughly in sales comparison approach.
Gross rent multiplier.
11 is B. Use of land that yields the most money.
Oh,
Highest and best use.
12 is C. Appraisal technique that analyzes the cost to build.
Cost approach.
6 is D. Analysis of value of property using return on investment.
Income approach.
13 is E. Extra that contributes to the owner's satisfaction, like clean air, nice views, and so on.
Oh, amenity.
That's number one.
An amenity. Number 1 is F. A loss of value due to any cause or condition.
Okay, depreciation.
7 is G, depreciation. A loss of value due to factors beyond the property's boundaries.
External.
External, okay.
8 is H, external obsolescence. A loss of value due to worn or outmoded features. It means outdated.
Functional.
Functional.
9 is I, functional obsolescence. Process of estimating value.
Appraiser.
What? I had a couple people talking one time.
Appraiser.
Appraisal, yes. 2 is J. A rate of return demanded by investors in a particular area.
Oh, capitalization rate.
It's a cap rate. 4 is K. Similar nearby property recently sold.
Comparables.
9 is L. I'm sorry, 5. 5 is L. 5 is L, comparables. An independent person trained to provide an unbiased estimate of value.
Appraisal.
Appraiser.
3 is M, the appraiser. Okay, key terms 2.
Oy.
I know. We didn't even do the math yet. Analysis of values received by different appraisal approaches. Let's see how the book worded it. Applying different, more than
Market
2
value?
appraisal approaches. to the same
Reconciliation.
property. Reconciliation. 4 is A.
Oh.
Cost to rebuild exactly using materials.
Oh,
Like the
Replacement.
Reproduction cost.
6 is
Right.
B, reproduction, to make it exactly the same.
Yeah, the same.
Cost to rebuild using today's materials and techniques.
Replacement costs.
5 is C. What a property actually ends up selling for.
Oh,
Market
market
price.
price.
1 is D. It's the selling price. The market price is the selling price. Location, buyer's willingness to pay more for certain
Situs.
locations.
Citations?
Yes, situs, however you like to pronounce it. 8 is E. A loss of value due to wear and tear.
Physical deterioration.
3 is F, correct. Physical deterioration. A parcel of real estate that's being appraised. What do we call it?
Oh, subject property.
9 is G. 9 is G. The present worth of future benefits describes.
Value.
11 is H. Price that would be paid by an informed buyer.
Market value.
2 is I. A principle that no one pays more if the same can be had for less.
Substitution.
Yes, 10 is J, substitution. Appraisal technique that analyzes the sale price of comparable properties.
Oh, sales comparison approach.
7 is K, and that's the sales comparison approach. All right,
Victor, are we going to be getting something like this in the exam?
what's that? Question? Yeah, you're getting a lot of questions from this chapter on exam.
No, like across like
No.
this. No,
I didn't understand. What's the question?
like the
And matching, he said
midterm
matching,
review.
matching.
Oh,
Matching.
no. It's multiple choice. You got 4
Oh.
options.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be multiple choice like this, but it's 4 answer options, not 11 or 13 or. Okay,
A miracle.
yep. All right, let me see. I'm looking for my math problems for you.
Gosh,
Appreciation.
it would be nice if, I mean, I know I said this before, but I'm just thinking here, like, if only the state test would let us take it in like sections, it would be so nice.
Oh, you mean I could come take a few questions here, then I could come back again and take a
Like
few.
do it in sections, like you could do it, like split it up, like maybe do appraisals, one, you know what I mean, in one section and contract from another. But I know that's not possible, but it would be nice if they did.
Yeah.
Yep, nope.
You know what I mean?
As a matter of fact, they want to,
They could break it up somehow.
well, they used to break it into general real estate portion and the state law portion. And the general real estate is the same no matter what state you're in. And the general law portion, and then you have the state exam questions, which are specific to New Jersey. They
I
don't.
remember you telling me they did away with that, but it would be
Yeah.
nice if they somehow split it up.
But when they had it, it wasn't good because they graded each portion separately. So
Yeah.
if you did not pass that particular section because it was your weak area, you failed the exam altogether. You had to pass each section individually, even if the total overall questions you had were acceptable for the right amount of answers. But each section was graded separately, so you would still have failed. You know, so it's easier now the way they have it. Looking for another math problem. Just hang tight for me for a sec. I didn't have it labeled right for some reason. Oh, cap, GRM, and depreciation. Oh, there we go. Maybe I can copy this. Everything is here. I don't know if that works that way. Copy. See if I copy and paste it onto one. There we go. Was able to. Awesome. All right, let me first start off by teaching you how to use the T formula to answer problems. Let me get another math problem I have for commission rates. I want to add to this slide or to this whiteboard. What do you guys see now? You guys see the whiteboard, or I still got you there on the slide?
Which slide?
Okay. I'm just doing another problem I need to find real quick and add it to the whiteboard, and then we're going to go to the whiteboard to do some math problems. So I'm just gathering some math problems and adding them to the same whiteboard. Bear with me one moment. Yep. I wasn't recording during all that. Look at that.